Chapter 133. Dark clouds covered the sky, shielding Yi Qinghan from seeing through the mysteries of heaven. Occasionally, a bolt of lightning would strike down with astonishing momentum. Yi Qinghan's aura was faintly discernible, as he used his divine sense to pry into the mysteries of heaven. However, the mysteries of heaven were difficult to predict. Those who defied the heavens would die, and those who obeyed the heavens would be sad. This was a principle that had never changed since the ancient times. The dark clouds were like mountains as they covered the sky above the Demon Valley continent and suppressed the earth. A terrifying will pressed down on Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan wanted to see through the true heavenly passage realm. It was not like the so-called heavenly passage realm for ordinary people. There was a fundamental difference between the two. As long as he broke through to the heavenly passage realm, the broad path of the great Tao would appear in front of Yi Qinghan. He would be able to cultivate the divine martial imperial code from back then, and be truly invincible in the same realm. He would be able to look down on all heroes with the bearing of a supreme war king. Yi Qinghan used his divine sense to connect with the Sea of Bitterness, and entered the Land of Chaos. He used the Land of Chaos to connect with the mysteries of heaven, predict good fortune, and turn it into danger. The mountain range was drowned by endless rain as tribulation clouds gathered. In terms of difficulty, the heavenly passage realm was perhaps the most difficult to break through. It was even more difficult than the Fate Palace. The heavenly passage was in the heavens, and the Fate Palace was in one's own body. Yi Qinghan wanted to pry into the mysteries of heaven, and actually attracted a lightning tribulation. This made the parrot furious. Damn, what is this demon trying to do? Isn't the lightning tribulation only at the Tao sovereign realm? The parrot was shocked as it looked at the pressure in the sky that wanted to destroy the mountain range. It trembled and wanted to escape, but Emperor Yi pressed it firmly to the ground. What are you doing? Let me go. If you anger this divine bird, I'll burn you. The parrot struggled and roared angrily. Aren't you a loyal martyr for generations? Master is breaking through to the heavenly passage realm, and is attracting a lightning tribulation. Shouldn't you share some of the burden? You actually want to run. What kind of martyr are you? Emperor Yi mocked. What do you know? They died because they were martyrs. I don't want to die. I'm loyal and devoted, but I don't want to be a martyr. You brat, let me go. No. If you dare to move again, I'll throw you into the lightning tribulation the moment it comes down. You'll have to help Master withstand the lightning tribulation. Emperor Yi threatened. The parrot immediately became a lot more well-behaved, and said with an embarrassed smile, Young Master, don't joke around. My small body can't withstand the thunder tribulation at all. I'm just a piece of trash that's throwing away my life. You can't let me make a meaningless sacrifice. Shameless. Emperor Yi was speechless. He threw the parrot to the back and summoned the divine zither. He said in a deep voice, I'm going to block the heavenly secrets from spying on this place. You better behave yourself. Otherwise, I'll lead the lightning tribulation to you. The parrot twitched its body and glared at Emperor Yi with disdain. Then it obediently stayed by his side. Emperor Yi gently plucked the strings of the zither, and the sound of the zither spread out. Strands of heavenly sounds went against the heavens, triggering a backlash. The heavy rain reversed, and formed a waterfall that poured into the distance. The vitality of this place was suddenly boundless. Even the heavenly Tao couldn't bear to destroy it. His beautiful hair fluttered in the wind. Gradually, Emperor Yi was immersed in the Tao of the zither. The burial emperor's chant caused the great Tao to collapse. The terrifying great emperors will suppressed everything. The patterns of the great Tao became clear and visible. Yi Qinghan's eyes shot out, seeing through the void, and peering into the power of the heavenly abode. He could forcefully borrow the power of the heavenly abode for his own use. It was no longer like the bitter sea stage, where he needed to slowly gather his aura. Boom, boom, boom. His vital essence became rich, and the surrounding spirit crystals turned into fine powder. The spiritual energy was instantly forcefully taken away by Yi Qinghan. The fine powder of the spirit crystals was blown away by the cold wind. Divine light flowed all over his body crystal clear. His azure dragon arms were about to reach the sky. The blood in his blood vessels formed an azure dragon, crushing all bottlenecks. The heavenly abode appears, the imperial codex appears. 9 dragons pull the carriage, a rainbow phoenix as the crown. One eye of the emperors can sink the heavens. A corner of the sea of consciousness exploded, and a slightly deep voice exploded. It was as if Yi Qinghan had appeared at the peak of the sea of consciousness. The end of the sea of consciousness was covered with multicolored light. 9 dragons pulled the imperial codex, and a rainbow phoenix danced gracefully. The imperial codex appeared in the sky above the sea of consciousness. It was ancient and oppressive, causing Yi Qinghan to have no choice but to lower his arrogant head. This was the divine martial imperial codex. At the moment Yi Qinghan self-detonated, it brought his soul through the universe and entered the edge of the Owl Dragon region. After entering the Owlfall star, it sealed itself. If Yi Qinghan didn't reach the heavenly abode realm, the divine martial imperial codex would never appear. The divine martial imperial codex was only the size of a palm, but the 4 words were soul-stirring and suppressed all doubts. It contained the profound meaning of the law that was hard to understand. Just one look at it would cause one's mind to be in chaos, and one's Tao heart to be shattered. Yi Qinghan's eyes shot out a ray of cold light. Seeing the divine martial imperial codex appear in the sea of consciousness, he clenched his fists. The little man in the sea of consciousness had his black hair fluttering. He reached out and grabbed the demon dragon saber. Looking at the 4 words on the divine martial imperial codex, he started to cultivate crazily. Swish, swish, swish. The saber radiance flashed, and the demonic aura stirred the sea of consciousness. The little man's power was terrifying. He could see through the sky, but he couldn't see through the divine martial imperial codex. Open, Yi Qinghan muttered. The little man pointed at the imperial codex, intending to open it and cultivate it officially. The divine martial imperial codex automatically opened to the first page. The difficult words released a terrifying power that seemed to be able to suppress a Tao sovereign and crush the heavens and earth. Saber God Chapter. If you want to cultivate the saber, you must understand the saber. The saber is the emperor of weapons. Once the saber Tao appears, all Taoists will submit. With the saber in hand, I am invincible. The domineering heart, the divine aura of the saber, the madman, the god of the saber. Controlling the saber, all things are the saber. Being controlled by the saber, all things are the enemy. Hurting others, hurting oneself. Who can compete with a 9th grade madman? A domineering and arrogant aura gushed out from the imperial codex, intimidating all evil and evil people. It was definitely the natural enemy of the evil sword Tao. Those with evil intentions didn't even have the courage to look at it. The few sentences of the Saber God chapter were filled with the supreme domineering aura of the emperor. These words were accompanied by the profound meaning of the laws and the patterns of the great Tao. They kept drilling into Yi Qinghan's sea of consciousness. They were difficult to understand, and they stirred up Yi Qinghan's sea of consciousness. It was as if he had been reborn. The little man formed by the soul of a grand martial venerable coughed out blood and flew backward, unable to resist. Yi Qinghan's face was pale. He coughed out a mouthful of essence blood, and his consciousness stopped looking at the divine martial imperial codex. The words of the imperial codex contained the patterns of the great Tao. Looking at it too much was not beneficial. If someone's willpower was not strong enough, their Tao heart would be shattered and they would die. At this moment, Yi Qinghan had not officially broken into the heavenly insight realm. It was already very powerful for him to be able to look at it and not die. In the quote, a 9th grade madman was an extreme weapon. It was a pity that Yi Qinghan could not create a true 7-foot madman. Otherwise, a strand of saber aura would be able to destroy a huge star. The true 9th grade madman had already disappeared in the long river of history. Yi Qinghan stood up coldly. His black hair fluttered in the sky. The aura of the demon dragon saber in his hand exploded. Every time he looked at the quote of the Saber God chapter, his domineering aura would increase, and his understanding of the way of the saber would deepen. If I am a heavenly insight, who dares to stop me? Yi Qinghan stepped out of the cave and rose into the sky. His eyes could see through everything and looked directly at the origin of the great Tao. The origin of water wrapped around his body and formed a huge water dragon. He did not need to use any true essence to stand in midair. Boom! The tribulation clouds appeared again. The golden lightning contained the profundity of the great Tao and struck the mountain range. It was deafening. You don't care about what you should care about, and meddle in what you shouldn't. You are really useless. What's the use of your heavenly insight? What's the use of fearing you? Yi Qinghan mocked with disdain. The veins on his azure dragon arm bulged and turned into a heavenly dragon that coiled around the demon dragon saber. He pointed to the sky and shouted arrogantly, "The heavenly insight is not benevolent. I want to seal the heavens. The great Tao is merciless. My saber will break the firmament." Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The bucket-like lightning crossed the void and turned into a golden dragon that swam between heaven and earth. The entire Owlfall star could feel the crazy lightning tribulation that wanted to destroy everything. Slash! Yi Qinghan held the demon dragon saber and slashed at the incoming golden lightning. When the two came into contact, the golden lightning wrapped around the demon dragon saber. The demon dragon saber was no longer gloomy and filled with baleful aura. Instead, it was shining with golden radiance and emitted the aura of an emperor. The lightning followed the demon dragon saber and penetrated Yi Qinghan's body. The purple battle robe on his upper body turned into fine powder, revealing his strong bronze skin. He was as steady as Mount Tai and did not move at all. The golden lightning swam around Yi Qinghan's body. Not only did he not dodge, he even used the lightning to refine his body. His muscles turned dark, and after being washed by the rain, they shone with golden radiance as if he had a divine body. The azure dragon arm was even more captivating. It wrapped around the demon dragon saber tightly and merged with it. It was invincible and constantly repelled the lightning. The lightning shattered his skin, causing blood to splatter everywhere and dye his entire body red. The golden blood swam around his injured body and healed it continuously. He became incomparably strong. In terms of physical strength, no one in the same realm could compete with him, except for some terrifying ancient special constitutions. Yi Qinghan became more and more courageous as he fought. He started to counterattack the lightning tribulation. His figure rose higher and higher, and his saber Tao became sharper. It was invincible and could shatter space. He was only half a step away from the real Grotto Heaven realm. As long as he could break through this lightning tribulation, Yi Qinghan would be able to use the momentum to fly. When he faced an opponent like Stan Yunshan again, he would have the ability to compete with him. Even if he was defeated, he would not lose his life. The parrot was trembling all over. It looked at Yi Qinghan crazily pouncing on the lightning tribulation and cursed inwardly. Fuck, he is really a madman. If I follow you, I will be killed by you sooner or later. On the other hand, Emperor Yi was extremely excited. He was attracted by Yi Qinghan's overbearing aura. Only when she was by his side did she feel extremely safe. No one could hurt her at all. The god-slaying eagle looked at Yi Qinghan in awe. At this moment, it was completely subdued. In the past, it only wanted to use the shape-shifting art. But now, it wanted to be loyal, and did not dare to go against his will. Yi Qinghan turned his back to the common people. His golden hair fluttered behind his back. He stood there like a god of war. No matter how strong the lightning tribulation was, he would rather die than retreat. With a saber in hand, I am invincible. When I attack fiercely, who can compete with me? Yi Qinghan raised his saber. His voice was like thunder, majestic and ancient. It shook the heavens and the earth. The lightning tribulation trembled, and its power weakened. Open! Grotto Heaven realm appear! Yi Qinghan roared furiously. He held his saber and slashed at the center of the tribulation clouds. His true origin poured out and turned into a real dragon. It crushed the shackles and entered the tribulation clouds, swallowing everything. Hum hum hum, the heavenly dragon opened the way. The demon dragon saber was struck with a wild power. It was wild but not loud. It was fierce and overbearing. It directly broke through the tribulation clouds. The dark clouds in the sky dispersed. He raised his eyebrows and stood proudly at the top of the dome of heaven. Who would dare to stop him? The parrot was overjoyed. It flapped its wings and wriggled its fat body. It shouted, "Master is mighty and domineering. Attack fiercely and unify the world. Yo yo yo." Chapter 134. Such a dignified moment was completely destroyed by the parrot's obscene words. Emperor Yi put away his guqin and stood up. He curled his lips in disdain and mocked. You're just a fence-sitter. You're full of lies. You only know how to bootlick. Nonsense. I'm a loyal spirit pet that protects my master. Of course I'm happy when my master breaks through. As my master's disciple, you don't even celebrate. Instead, you blame this divine bird. Unfilial. Bang. Emperor Yi lifted his golden lotus foot and kicked the parrot away. Aya. I at #yen%. Yi Qinghan's divine aura was vast and mighty. He looked down on all living beings. With a wave of his hand, the origin of water dispersed. He relied on the momentum of heaven and earth to fly in the air. He was graceful and agile, incomparably carefree. He stretched out his 10 fingers and took a deep breath. He muttered to himself, I haven't flown in a long time. I want to step on the sky. Confident, arrogant, domineering. At this moment, Yi Qinghan's aura was indescribable. His eyes were deep and bright, charming and enchanting. His thin lips curled up slightly, revealing his evil and arrogant temperament. Master is so handsome. Fortunately, I'm not female. The parrot flew into the sky flatteringly to welcome Yi Qinghan. If you shut up, I can be even more handsome. Yi Qinghan looked coldly at the parrot. He then continued to comprehend the grotto heaven realm and the mysteries of heaven. The parrot smiled embarrassedly, not feeling embarrassed at all. An hour later, after confirming that Si Kaiyun's qi and blood had returned to normal, and that his combat strength had greatly decreased, Yi Qinghan stepped on the ground. He waved his hand, and the parrot was captured on his shoulder. He said hoarsely, God-slaying eagle, let's return to the continent. The God-slaying eagle spread its wings and flew high. Yi Qinghan pulled Emperor Ye's small hand and gently shook. His body landed on the back of the God-slaying eagle. He stood against the wind and broke through the waves. His aura was overwhelming. His black hair and clothes fluttered. Fire Cloud City, Tang Quan, and the others were filled with killing intent. They glared at Lu Patian and said coldly, Yi Qinghan has a sister in Lulan, right? Hand her over to me. Lu Potion's face was gloomy. He clenched his fists and said aggressively, Senior, I respectfully call you senior, but please maintain your attitude and treat yourself as someone important. What do you think Lulan is? If I get whatever I want, how am I going to establish myself in the future? What's more, you're an old man who's almost 500 years old. You're going to kidnap a 5-year-old girl to threaten a 10-year-old boy. We haven't even confirmed that Yi Qinghan did this. If you do this, where's your face? You are courting death. Since when did it become your turn to judge the way this old man does things? Tang Quan was incomparably overbearing as he berated in disdain. Yes, I'm not qualified to comment, but don't forget that this is ancient Lulan, an empire with thousands of years of history. If you want Yi Qinghan's sister, then you have to be prepared for a lose-lose situation. I'm afraid of death, but that doesn't mean I'm not willing to fight. Lu Patian was furious. Tang Quan's actions were simply humiliating Lulan and him. Mutual destruction? Do you want both Lulan and the 4 major powers to suffer? Are you worthy? Tang Quan mocked in disdain. The atmosphere in Flaming Cloud City was so oppressive that it was difficult to breathe. None of the overlords dared to interrupt the battle between the Life Palace realm powerhouses. Dongfang Haoyue and Situ Wanli's faces darkened. They did not say anything, but it was obvious that they supported Tang Quan's plan to kidnap Yi Mengxi and threaten Yi Qinghan. However, Yi Kongqing did not look too good. He felt that it was unwise to kidnap a 5-year-old to threaten another child in public. Xian Yuanyu's face turned even uglier. He did not expect Tang Quan to be so shameless as he got older. He was going to use a 5-year-old girl to threaten others. My auction house will not allow such a thing to happen. Senior Tang Quan, please think carefully before you do anything. Don't embarrass yourself as a Life Palace realm powerhouse. If Yi Qinghan is really the murderer of Tang Shang and the others, you can do anything you want, and we won't stop you. However, you haven't even done your research, and you're going to kidnap a little girl from ancient Lulan to threaten others. You're making a fool of yourself. Xian Yuanyu mocked. You're too arrogant. Can you represent the entire auction house? Tang Quan said in disdain. I can. Yi Qinghan saved the entire Flaming Cloud City. I don't think you've forgotten, right? We can't protect our savior, but at least we can't let him be the scapegoat. Otherwise, we're not worthy of being human. Don't you think so? Xianyuan used Aura Sword as he looked down at the people of Flaming Cloud City and shouted in a deep voice. Yes, we can't let Mr. Yi be the scapegoat. Our lives were saved by Mr. Yi. Stand up and say something. At this moment, the people of Flaming Cloud City were not ordinary people. There were countless Bitter Sea Realm and Grotto Heaven Realm powerhouses who had come to support Flaming Cloud City in the fight against the monster horde. They represented the entire Owl Falling Star. Tang Quan and the others had to take their feelings into consideration. We won't allow anyone to slander Mr. Yi. Some people are just sour grapes. We can't trust the words of the Qing clan. Someone in the crowd said in a deep voice. Obviously, they were unhappy with the Qing clan. Emperor Yi had said in front of everyone that his surname was not Qin, but Yi. The Qing clan did not get any benefits, so they started to slander Yi Qinghan. No one was happy to slander the god of war in their hearts. Yi Qinghan's battle had established his prestige, and he had also given them the corpse of the fourth-grade demonic beast. In their hearts, they naturally supported Yi Qinghan. Furthermore, the auction house and Lu Lan had taken the lead. They only supported them mentally and did not want to offend Tang Quan and the others too much. Tang Quan's face darkened. His eyes were even sharper than an eagle's as he stared at Lu Patian and Xianyuanyu. Realizing that they were so determined to protect Yi Mingxi, even if they had to offend the four-limit realm cultivators, Tang Quan's killing intent rose. Let's go, Lu Lan. I want to see if that old man Lu Lan will go against us for a little girl. Tang Quan said to Situ Wanli and the others in disdain. Brother Tang, I don't think it's appropriate to catch that little girl. After all, she's only 5 years old. If they find out that it wasn't Yi Qinghan who did it, how will we explain it? Yi Kongqing frowned and asked. What's there to explain? If I catch the wrong person, I'll just let her go. He still dares to ask me for an explanation? Tang Quan sneered and said domineeringly. Lu Patian and the others were speechless. This old thing was simply unreasonable. Tang Quan's hegemonic words also caused some people to be disgusted. Yi Kongqing was speechless. He was also annoyed by these brainless words. He said coldly, I won't get involved in this matter. I can't afford to lose face. It's fine if you don't get involved, as long as you don't stand against me. I don't believe that Xianyuan Chunxiao and Lu Guyan will dare to go against our 3 clans. Tang Quan finished speaking and rushed towards ancient Lulan's capital with Situ Wanli and the others. Lu Patian and Xianyuanyu looked at each other and also rushed over. Their killing intent was everywhere, intimidating Lu Lan and making people panic. The strong were merciless. Once they fought, the ones who were injured would always be the weak cultivators. They would be crushed by the merciless aftershocks and die miserably. At this moment, Si Yinshin led the group to wipe out the blood fiend, but still couldn't find Yi Qinghan. Si Kaiyan broke through the void and descended. He was covered in blood and looked extremely old. He said in a low voice, Return to Sea Star quickly. This old man needs to recuperate. A large cloud-piercing ship was summoned. A group of people stepped on it and soared into the sky. They disappeared from Alfal Star in the blink of an eye and brushed past Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan had just arrived at the Demon Valley. He put away the god-slaying eagle and summoned the 5th-tier vibrating spirit wings. He used stellar transposition and instantly traveled 100 miles. He arrived at Fire Cloud City, but found the atmosphere strange. Many people were looking at him at the same time. Their gazes made him frown. Mr. Yi, quickly go to Lulan's capital. Someone wants to capture your younger sister. Someone secretly shouted. And then the crowd fell into dead silence. Yi Qinghan clenched his fists and flapped his wings. He swept up the sand and stones and rushed towards ancient Lulan's capital. Lulan's capital was close to the center of Zhongzhou. It was one of the most prosperous areas where countless powerful warriors gathered. The headquarters of the auction house was not far from here. The arrival of so many fate palaces with murderous intents shocked many people. In the depths of the underground palace of Lulan's capital, a terrifying aura was awakened. At the same time, In the headquarters of the auction house, another terrifying aura was awakening as well. Why aren't you all cultivating at home and fighting for the last chance? Why are you all out here? Lu Guyan, the Lulan divine ancestor, walked out of the underground palace. He had white hair and looked like an immortal. He was the great general who had accompanied Lu Patian to conquer many territories. He was twice as old as Lu Patian and was close to 500 years old. He was only a few years away from the end of his life. His aura was terrifying and unparalleled, not inferior to Tang Quan and the others. Brother Lu, our Tang clan, Sita clan, and Dongfang clan have all fallen at the same time. The murderer escaped, but his sister is still in the imperial capital. I hope Brother Lu can find her and hand her over to us, Tang Quan said in a low voice. 3 fate palaces fell at the same time? Was it done by one person? Lu Guyan frowned in disbelief. We haven't found out yet, Tang Quan murmured in shock. Then did you find out that it was definitely done by that person? Where is his sister? Lu Guyan asked again. We haven't found out yet, but there's an 80% chance that it was done by him. As for his sister, she's in your palace. I think she should be in the Crown Prince mansion right now. Hand her over to me, and I'll naturally find out. Tang Quan said domineeringly. Are you old or do you think I'm a sick cat? Lu Guyan's aura turned cold and said with disdain. We're all at the end of our lifespans, and we're all fighting for our last breath. You haven't found out anything yet you came to me in such an aggressive manner, and asked me to hand her over. Moreover, she's a guest of my Lulan Crown Prince. Are you slapping my face? Do you think I care about 2 or 3 years of lifespan? Tang Quan's expression turned ugly. Why was Lulan always such a wretch? Hand her over to me and I'll find out. Tang Quan shouted angrily. Who do you think you are? Why should I hand her over to you? Even if you find out that it was done by that person, what does it have to do with his sister? Go find him if you have the ability. Lu Guyan was even more arrogant. He was indeed the #1 general in the past. He was an iron-blooded general who conquered half of the owl-falling star. Xianyuan Chenxiao grinned and said to Lu Patian, Patian, bring that girl out to see. She's actually worth such an expert's attention. I'm a little interested. Senior, she's only 5 years old. Her brother is not even 20 years old, and his cultivation is only 7 stars of the bitter sea. Lu Patian smiled bitterly. Ha ha ha. Xianyuan Chenxiao and Lu Guyan laughed crazily, as if they had heard the funniest joke. They looked at Tang Quan and the others with disdain. Chapter 135. In Lulan Empire's capital, some experts were laughing madly. 3 great limit experts came to the empire and demanded a 5-year-old girl to threaten an 18 or 19-year-old youth. This sounded like a joke. Tang Quan and the other 2's faces were ashen. They felt nauseous as if they had eaten a fly. At this moment, Lu Outyan walked out of the palace alone. He was wearing the golden armor of the Crown Prince. He was handsome and vigorous and looked like a deity. At this moment, he represented the entire Lulan Empire. His aura was majestic, and his entire temperament had clearly changed. Faintly discernible sword chi lingered around his golden body. The current Crown Prince of Lulan greets the divine ancestor, great ancestor and seniors. Lu Outyan bowed slightly. He was neither servile nor overbearing. When Tang Quan saw Lu Outyan, he said coldly, Lu Outyan, hand Yi Mingxi over to me. Lu Outyan cultivated the 5th grade Great Reincarnation sword art. His aura was completely different from before. His king aura was dense and he was more confident. In a short month, he had broken through to the Grotto Heaven realm. Hearing Tang Quan's overbearing tone, he couldn't help but frown. Senior is so rude. This junior greets senior as a crown prince. It's fine if you don't reply, but you actually ordered me to do so. Are you looking down on our Lulan divine ancestor? Less nonsense. I'll ask you one thing today. Are you going to hand her over or not? Tang Quan asked coldly. Such a forceful tone and rude attitude angered Lu Guyan and the others. However, they didn't say anything. Instead, they looked at Lu Outyan with the intention of testing him. Lu Outyan was indifferent. He wasn't suppressed by Tang Quan's aura. Instead, he replied even more forcefully, What a joke. If I go to the Tang family and slap you, then ask you to hand her over, what will you do? Don't blame me for not respecting you. You're courting death. Don't think that Lu Guyan can protect you, Tang Quan threatened. It doesn't matter if I can protect her or not. What's more important is dignity. You're asking me for her for no reason, and using such an attitude. What's more, it's easy for you to kill me. When my divine ancestor comes to kill your Tang family members, can you protect her? Lu Outyin wasn't afraid. Good. Good. You're sharp-tongued. Tang Quan was exasperated. He knew that he was in the wrong. He paused and said, Yi Mingxi's brother Yi Qinghan is suspected of killing 3 great Fate Palace experts. I want to use Yi Mingxi to lure Yi Qinghan out. So please cooperate. Hand Yi Mingxi, and I owe you a favor. You're really interesting. My brother Yi Qinghan is only at the 8th star of the Bitter Sea realm. There's a huge gap between him and the 3 Fate Palace cultivators. It's indeed a pity that Senior Tang Sheng and the others died. But this matter has nothing to do with my brother Yi Qinghan, right? Without him, Flaming Cloud City would have been destroyed. How can you be at ease here? What's more, even if Tang Sheng and the other Fate Palace experts were killed by my brother Yi Qinghan, if you want revenge, you should look for him, not me. You shouldn't look for his 5-year-old sister. He trusted me. That's why he gave Mingxi to me. If I give her to you, and you use her to threaten my brother, wouldn't that be the biggest joke in the world? Lu Outyin retorted coldly. You're forcing me to make a move. Tang Quan's murderous aura exploded and shrouded Lu Outyin. How dare you? Lu Guyan was furious. He stepped forward, and was as domineering as Tang Quan. How dare you? A domineering voice broke through the air. It pierced through the clouds and shook the heavens and 10 lands. Before the person arrived, the pressure had already descended. Whoosh! A black shadow streaked across the void, and traveled dozens of miles in an instant. It was extremely fast. Afterimages filled the void behind it. Its huge wings flapped the sky and stirred up the wind. It was so fast that even the Fate Palace experts gasped. It felt like teleportation. 1 second, it was hundreds of miles away, and the next, it appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan's black hair fluttered in the air, while Emperor Yi hung around his neck. His purple robe fluttered in the wind. His vigorous body stood proudly in front of everyone. The aura of the Grotto Heaven realm permeated the air. His eyes were like those of an unparalleled master, emitting a terrifying will. You're the one who wants to threaten me with my sister's life? Yi Qinghan's murderous aura burst out as he stared at Tang Quan. His gaze was like a terrifying viper staring at its prey. It was fine if he didn't move, but if he moved, blood would stain 5 steps. You're Yi Qinghan? The murderous aura in Tang Quan's eyes had reached its peak. He was furious. So what if I am? Yi Qinghan asked coldly. Their aura soared as they clashed violently. The people around them had goosebumps and quickly retreated. In the end, there were only a few Fate Palace experts left within a radius of 5 miles. Lu Outyin, Lu Patian, Xinyuan Yu and the rest had all retreated a mile away. Yi Qinghan and Tang Quan were each more overbearing and crazy than the other. They had no intention of retreating at all. They didn't even ask a second question, as they confronted each other directly. Their eyes were filled with murderous aura. Yi Qinghan's arrogance stunned Lu Guyan and Xinyuan Chenxiao. They didn't expect this young man to come out of nowhere and start a conflict with Tang Quan without any hesitation. Tang Quan mobilized the force of the universe and pressed it against Yi Qinghan. Wind and clouds surged as his murderous aura surged. He said coldly, Tang Sheng, Situfeng and Dongfeng, you are all dead. My pet Xiaochang is also dead. Yi Qinghan replied disdainfully. What does your pet's death have to do with me? Tang Quan said furiously. What does Tang Sheng and Dongfeng Yu's death have to do with my master? You idiot. You don't even understand what I'm saying. You're lucky to be able to live to this age. The parrot sat on Emperor Ye's shoulder and said disdainfully. Cough cough. Tang Quan couldn't catch his breath, and almost died from anger. He clenched his fist and roared. Young man, you're courting death. You little thing. When I was conquering the world, you were still playing with mud. How dare you act so arrogant in front of me? I'll show you what true arrogance looks like. What kind of arrogance looks like? Yi Qinghan waved his hand, and the devil dragon saber appeared in his hand. His aura exploded and was unparalleled. He was furious. His eyes contained the power of heaven and earth. A wisp of profound law was attached to the saber. He looked up at Tang Quan and pointed his saber, shocking the entire square. Everyone gasped and had goosebumps all over their bodies. Some people felt their blood boiling. They felt as if they were going to confront Tang Quan personally. Tang Quan was too overbearing and unreasonable. Now that an even more overbearing and arrogant young man had appeared, their hearts were on Yi Qinghan's side. They wanted to slap Tang Quan a few times. This kind of arrogance also had the capital. Yi Qinghan had the soul of a great revered martial artist. He had a tyrannical body and could fly freely. His Qi Ci's true origin had reached the Great Circle. In addition, he had high-grade spiritual crystals. He was proud of being unparalleled in the same realm. In terms of weapons, the Devil Dragon Saber was the best. In terms of secret techniques, he could kill any expert in Xiaolong region. How could Tang Quan compete with him in terms of arrogance? Ignorant Junior, aren't you a bit too arrogant? No one has ever dared to speak to us like this. Situ Wanli said coldly as he stepped forward and used the momentum to pressure Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan smirked. If they wanted to compete with him in terms of force, once the aura of a great revered martial artist burst out, he could crush them alive. However, it was not the time to reveal his identity as a great revered martial artist. With force alone, it was not a problem to fight against 2 or 3 Life Palace realm experts. That's because you haven't met me. Now that I'm talking to you like this, are you going to threaten me with my 5-year-old sister's life? Or are you going to fight with me? Yi Qinghan mocked. A dragon had a reverse scale. Anyone who touched it would die. Having said that, did they still expect Yi Qinghan to compromise? It was not that Yi Qinghan had not endured humiliation before, but that was only for enemies who could not fight back at all. For example, Stan Star. Fighting against Stan Star now was a foolish move. However, for a few great revered martial artists who needed to escape a month ago, there was no need to do so now. He could drag them to death by dragging them out. Great revered martial artists did not have enough qi and blood, and did not have much vitality. They relied on force to suppress others, and burst out to kill people. However, once they encountered a terrifying opponent, they could drag on for 6 hours without dying. The great revered martial artist would automatically die. Haha, good. Good courage. No wonder Aotion is so protective of you. This old man admires you for your unyielding character. Lu Guiyan clapped and laughed. He stood in front of Yi Qinghan and released his force to block Tang Quan's force. He said coldly, "Everyone, Yi Qinghan is my Lulong Crown Prince's friend, so he is my Lulong Crown Prince's friend. If you want to deal with him, you have to show evidence. Otherwise, saying that it was groundless is too overbearing." Yi Qinghan had a conflict with Tang Sheng, and before he died, he went to Yi Qinghan. Now that he's dead, if it wasn't Yi Qinghan who did it, then who did it? Tang Quan asked angrily. Tang Quan, first of all, since you said that I had a conflict with Tang Sheng and the others, and they went to find me, do you think they were going to kowtow to me and admit their mistake or kill me? Do you think the 3 Fate Palaces would kowtow to me and admit their mistake? Obviously not. They definitely wanted to kill me. If they wanted to kill me and were killed by me instead, wouldn't they deserve to die? Secondly, according to your logic, you had a conflict with me, and my pet Xiao Chang was in Flaming Cloud City. It must be you who killed it, right? Thirdly, if you really want to prove that I killed Tang Sheng and the others, can you show me some reliable evidence? If you just want to kill me, then there's no need to talk so much nonsense. Today, you and I will fight one-on-one. If you can leave alive, then I will die. If I leave alive, then you will definitely die. Yi Qinghan flipped his demon blade and pulled Emperor Yi down with one hand. He went forward and confronted Tang Quan without any intention of compromising. Tikik. Tang Quan was so angry that his teeth were itching. He had never seen such a crazy junior. A trash at the first step of the Grotto Heaven realm actually dared to talk to him like this. Good. Since you dare to say this, it means that you are not afraid of death. This old man will let you know that there is a price to pay for your arrogance. Tang Quan was furious. He pulled out his sword and the sword qi pierced through heaven and earth. This seat will also let you know that as an old man who is about to reach the end of his life, you should stay at home and wait for death. You shouldn't take advantage of your seniority and act crazy to bully others. Yi Qinghan replied with disdain. Chapter 136. Swords were drawn and bows were drawn. Killing intent engulfed heaven and earth, and the atmosphere was oppressive. Yi Qinghan was arrogant to the extreme. Even in the face of a great limit, he did not retreat. Many people were curious and looked at Yi Qinghan in shock. How could a young man who had just broken through to the heavenly passage realm have such courage to face a great limit expert? Swoosh! Yi Qinghan borrowed the momentum of heaven and earth, flapped his wings and flew high. His hair danced wildly, and his face was firm and resolute. The demonic aura of the demon dragon saber soared to the sky, and a baleful aura filled the air. He pointed his saber at Tang Quan and said coldly, "Come. In terms of fighting and risking my life, I, Yi Qinghan, have never been afraid of anyone. For someone like you, whose vitality is dim, even if you stab me 10 times, you might not be able to kill me. Crazy, tyrannical, barbaric. What a good way to say that if you stab me 10 times and I don't die, I'll kill you with one slash." This was a completely suicidal way of fighting. Just this momentum alone was enough to scare many people. In this world, who was not afraid of death? The corner of Tang Quan's mouth twitched. This was the first time he had seen such a madman. Such a tyrannical and crazy momentum that did not put anyone in his eyes made him shudder. However, a Great Limit Realm expert was still a Great Limit Realm expert. He was much stronger than Yi Qinghan. No matter how terrifying Yi Qinghan's aura was, it couldn't scare him to the point where he didn't even dare to fight. "Good. This old man wants to see how you'll slash me today," Tang Quan sneered. His murderous intent radiated in all directions. His figure moved and rushed into the sky. Yi Qinghan's figure continued to rise, and his momentum became stronger. His eyes flickered with divine light, as he wanted to drag this Great Limit expert to death. He already had a plan in his mind. This Great Limit expert had a fatal weakness, and that was that they could not withstand a protracted battle. Their peak battle strength could only last for an hour, and then they would gradually weaken. After 2 hours, they would show signs of defeat. After 4 hours, they would be powerless, and after 6 hours, they would undoubtedly die. As long as Yi Qinghan could hold on for 4 hours, Tang Quan would definitely die. The vibrating spiritual wings flapped in the sky, rolling up the airflow. Yi Qinghan held the sky in white clouds, and divinity radiated in all directions. The experts all rushed into the clouds, quietly watching the battle that was about to begin. His cold light burst out from the long saber, tearing the void. The murderous aura was so dense that it confronted Tang Quan from 1,000 meters away. A distance of 1,000 meters might seem very far, but when the two experts charged at each other, it would only take an instant. It couldn't be considered a distance at all. Ding! The cold sword in Tang Quan's hand was unsheathed. Sword qi crisscrossed, almost stepping into the ranks of war weapons. A terrifying pressure intimidated the 9 heavens. His face was full of disdain. Tang Quan had comprehended a sliver of the sword Dao. Although it was only an embryonic form, its power was definitely not low. No wonder he was so domineering. Sky-shattering sword Dao. Die! Hum hum hum. Whoosh! Tang Quan's sword force was like a rainbow, transforming into a sharp sword, and fusing with the spirit weapon in his hand, shattering the void and instantly breaking through space. In the blink of an eye, he was not far away from Yi Qinghan, stabbing straight for his chest. Before he even arrived, the sword qi had already torn apart Yi Qinghan's clothes. Hiss hiss. The sound of clothes being torn apart was especially ear-piercing. Xianyuan Chunshao and Lu Guyan frowned as they watched. They were somewhat worried about Yi Qinghan. "Who can contend against me when I attack violently?" Yi Qinghan muttered. The veins on his azure dragon arm bulged as his aura soared into the galaxy. The clothes on his right arm were torn apart as divine light circulated. It was extremely terrifying. Whirlwind slash. Swish. 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 Yi Qinghan was powerful, and almost instantly exploded with his peak battle strength. His vital essence poured out crazily as his body drove the saber to spin rapidly, forming a huge defensive saber chi shield around him. Clang! 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 The saber and sword collided, piercing everyone's eardrums. Even the great limit experts felt uncomfortable and retreated. Tang Quan's boundless vital essence poured out from the spirit weapon. It was invincible and had boundless strength. It almost instantly defeated Yi Qinghan, but it didn't break through the defensive chi shield. Boom! The tip of the sword collided with the back of the demon dragon saber. A wisp of sword aura rushed into Yi Qinghan's body and broke through his defense. His body seemed extremely weak as it directly penetrated through his body. The blood sword rushed into the clouds. The difference was too great. It wasn't that Yi Qinghan wasn't strong enough, but that the great limit experts were too terrifying, and their sword aura was too sharp. Yi Qinghan was injured in one move, but Tang Quan wasn't satisfied. A sword at its peak was enough to kill an ordinary Fate Palace realm warrior. However, against Yi Qinghan, only a wisp of sword aura broke through his defense. Although Yi Qinghan was injured, he grinned. If he could block the first move, he could block the second. He could even hold on for 2 hours. Saber breaking the firmament. Slash. Yi Qinghan advanced instead of retreating. He raised his saber and broke through the void. The azure dragon arm and the demon dragon saber intertwined. There was nothing they couldn't break. His aura was superb as he struck out with a terrifying, unrivaled will. It shook the hearts of the heroes. Arrogant brat. I'll send you to hell in 3 moves to appease the souls of Tang Sheng and the others in heaven. Whoosh! The sword aura pierced through the air with extreme sharpness. The tip of the sword trembled, and 3 sword flowers turned into the sharpest weapon. They formed a triangular formation and attacked Yi Qinghan. Boom, boom, boom. Both sides were extremely aggressive and didn't leave any leeway. They wanted to kill each other in one move. The strong collision caused the sky to fall and the earth to crack. Although they were thousands of meters high in the sky, the capital city was clearly shaking. Some houses had already begun to collapse. The frightened citizens fled to the square in despair. Pft! Yi Qinghan spat out a mouthful of blood essence. The azure dragon arm exploded and blood splattered everywhere. He was bathed in a river of blood. Tang Quan's face turned pale. His body trembled as he felt his blood essence burning rapidly. His vitality was flowing faster and faster. The few years he had left were about to disappear. He couldn't help but groan inwardly. Yi Qinghan's strength was so great that Tang Quan felt exhausted even when he tried his best. Divine light circulated, and his injured body rapidly recovered. Yi Qinghan didn't have much, but his blood essence was vigorous and his vitality was boundless. He could afford it. The azure dragon arm shone with golden light and recovered to its peak in the blink of an eye. He then charged at Tang Quan, as if he didn't care about his life. Let's see how many moves you can take. Swish, swish, swish. Yi Qinghan slashed out hundreds of times in an instant. His moves were as smooth as moving clouds and flowing water. He was as fast as lightning. The sharp blade split open the space and caused a spatial storm. Boom, boom, boom. Tang Quan was shocked and his sword moved even faster. He actually blocked all the hundreds of moves. However, his blood essence was boiling, and his vitality was dissipating more than 10 times faster than before. Yi Qinghan grinned and sneered. He didn't care about his serious injuries and roared crazily. Let's see how many more moves you can take. Deity sees. 1/10,000 Dao rise and fall. Boom. This slash contained the profundities of the law. The domineering aura of the saber god was indomitable, as he transformed into a war god. His whole body was covered in golden blood under the sunlight. This slash was as fast as lightning and couldn't be dodged. It shocked the mind and had the effect of seizing the soul. Tang Quan was only stunned for a moment and lost the opportunity to dodge. He could only raise his sword and take it head-on. Unparalleled sword Dao. Open. Tang Quan went crazy, and his eyes revealed a sinister look. He used his strongest combat strength and tried to kill Yi Qinghan in one move, or make him lose the ability to fight again. Otherwise, he would be the first to lose his strength. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Boom. The two's attacks shattered the void and collided in the blink of an eye. Cracks appeared in the sky, and a huge crack appeared in the plaza 1,000 meters below. It was incomparably terrifying. Yi Qinghan's 7 orifices were bleeding. The flesh on his azure dragon arm exploded, and only his golden battle bones were left. His body was like a kite with a broken string, as he was smashed backward. The wings on his back were distorted. Kacha! With a crisp sound, the 5th-grade vibrating spirit wings couldn't help but fall back rapidly. They were distorted and broke. This time, Yi Qinghan's body fell to the ground. The essence and blood in his body were boiling. The friction produced a monstrous flame that drowned Yi Qinghan in an instant. Situ Wanli and Dongfang Haoyue stared coldly at Xianyuan Chunxiao and Lu Guyun. They would definitely fight whoever dared to intervene. Tang Quan was also extremely miserable. The power of deity seas weighed at least 1,000,000 kilograms. With his old and weak body, his qi and blood were already dim. He didn't have much vitality left. At least half of his vitality was taken away by this slash. His face was as pale as paper, and his vitality was reduced by more than half. His body flew backward for a few thousand meters before stopping. His eyes were overflowing with killing intent, as he looked at Yi Qinghan, who was falling rapidly. He twisted his waist, and his body pierced the void like a sharp sword as he attacked Yi Qinghan. The experts on the square of the imperial capital fled one after another. The common people screamed in despair. This was a battle between immortals, and mortals suffered. Lu Outyan, Emperor Yi, and the others were tense. They were sweating profusely as they prayed in their hearts, hoping that Yi Qinghan could block this attack. Yi Qinghan had a splitting headache. His body was covered in flames. He felt the killing intent behind him. He bit the tip of his tongue and stabilized his mind. His fingertips trembled slightly as he muttered to himself. Water origin, bless my body. A water dragon appeared out of thin air and wrapped around Yi Qinghan's golden body. It extinguished the flames in an instant and lifted him up 100 meters. He suddenly turned around and slashed behind him. At this moment, he couldn't care less about exposing himself. It was a good move to kill someone. Berserk God slaying. Hua! A terrifying murderous intent shot out from the demon dragon's saber. Yi Qinghan's aura suddenly changed and became crazed. His murderous intent filled the sky, and his cold aura was like that of a god of death. His body shot out like a sharp sword and ruthlessly smashed towards Tang Quan. Everyone's pupils shrank as their Dao hearts collapsed. Both the younger generation and the older generation had shock in their eyes. Yi Qinghan's combat strength was too terrifying. What did it mean to be invincible in the same realm? This was it. Although he was at a disadvantage when fighting against an expert at the great limit, no one else could do this. Tang Quan was more and more certain that Tang Sheng and the others had died in the hands of Yi Qinghan. His killing intent grew stronger. The sharp sword in his hand contained the supreme sword Dao. It broke through the void as the tip of the sword drew lightning and ruthlessly clashed with the tip of the demon dragon saber. Kacha! The ear-piercing sound that tore through everyone's eardrums made countless experts on the ground unable to get up. Blood spurted out from their eyes and mouths as they were sent flying. Many commoners were shaken to death. Xianyuan Yu and Lu Pu used all their true energy just to protect the commoners in the city. They bore the brunt of the aftershock and were forced to kneel down. The stone slabs under their knees shattered, and even their kneecaps were shattered. PFFF. Yi Qinghan spat out a mouthful of blood into the void. His body turned into a 6-star and ruthlessly smashed into the ground. He fell from a height of a few hundred meters. In just a moment, a huge crater appeared in the square of the imperial capital. The entire imperial capital was shaking violently. Tang Quan let out a blood-curdling scream. His old flesh and blood were torn apart. The sword in his hand was broken into two and shot into the void. His body flew backward as his vitality was completely burned away. No matter who won today, he would die without a doubt. Chapter 137. Tang Quan's blood stained the sky. His qi and blood were boiling and his vitality was burning. His remaining few years of life were cut down by the saber. Yi Qinghan was like a cockroach that could not be killed. He roared out from the ground with blood all over his body and a cold face. Water ultimacy, bless me. The water dragon wrapped around his body, and his golden body roared. In the void, blood dyed the water dragon red, and turned it into a river of red. It was horrifying against heaven and earth. You're still not good enough when it comes to fighting with your life. I dare to die on the battlefield, but you're not qualified to kill me. Yi Qinghan's voice was hoarse. He raised his saber and chopped. His momentum was like a tiger, splitting the sky and pouncing on Tang Quan. Law ultimacy. Damn it. I've lived for 500 years, and I haven't comprehended a single law ultimacy. He has comprehended the most difficult law ultimacy before the age of 20. Lu Guyan's blood was boiling. She stared at Yi Qinghan, as if she could understand more about life by looking at him. Xianyuan Qinxiao's fingertips trembled slightly. He was so excited that he could not express his feelings. The Owlfall star lacked powerful secret skills the most, so it had not been able to produce a level 5 Dao Master expert. Now, Yi Qinghan gave them hope. If he had a level 5 secret skill, and a little bit of luck, he might be able to see through life and death, and become a level 5 Dao Master. He would have 500 more years of life. Tang Quan's hair stood on end, and he had goosebumps all over his body. It was the first time that he had seen such a desperate person. More importantly, Yi Qinghan could not be killed at all. He was very stubborn. If it were anyone else, they would have been lying down with such injuries. But now, he rushed to the sky and continued to fight to the death. At this moment, it was Xianyuan Chenxiao and Lu Guyan's turn to guard against Dongfang Haoyue and the others. This was the life and death battle between Yi Qinghan and Tang Quan. Whoever could last until the end would be the winner. But Tang Quan's vitality was burning, and there was no hope for him to survive. The only thing he could do now was to die together with Yi Qinghan. Damn bastard. So what if you're talented? Today, this old man will kill a genius. Tang Quan no longer suppressed the burning of his life force. His body aged rapidly, his skin wrinkled like tree bark, but his aura suddenly increased tenfold, suppressing the Daos above Owl-falling star. His battle prowess was raised to the peak. Yi Qinghan clenched his iron fists tightly. His blue dragon arm was about to transform into a dragon. He could no longer care about anything else. Using all his trump cards, he shouted in a low voice, God-slaying eagle combine armor transformation. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan had grown a pair of gigantic black wings on his back, fusing with his body. He turned into a dark domain angel, his might overflowing into the heavens like an eagle taking to the skies. Streams of air surged. The winds and clouds of heaven and earth suddenly changed. An unrivaled battle stance appeared in this world, shocking all the heroes within 10,000 li terror. Everyone sucked in a cold breath of air in horror as their muscles tensed up. They felt as if the great Tao laws around them were being forcefully controlled by Yi Qinghan. It was difficult for anyone to manipulate the great Tao laws around them. They couldn't even fly. The soul of a martial honorable looked down on the world, and looked down on all living beings. Even the aura of an invincible king could not withstand a single blow. Even the great limit realm experts seemed weak in front of him. You're just a rotten old man with no virtue. Even if you break through to the Tao Master realm, you'll still die under the thunder tribulation. Now, you're just struggling on your deathbed. I'll send you to the Western Paradise. Yi Qinghan's might overflowed into the heavens as he decided to kill Tang Quan. What kind of secret skill is this? How can he combine with his spiritual pets and become one? How can his aura suddenly increase so much? Tang Xing shouted in horror. He felt as if his soul was about to explode. He did not dare to fight against Yi Qinghan's will at all. Everyone had the same thought as Tang Xing. It was all attributed to the secret skill, not Yi Qinghan's soul. Yi Qinghan's lips curled up as his injured body healed instantly. He flipped the demon dragon saber and said coldly, You're just a frog at the bottom of a well. Today, I'll show you what real combat capability is. As soon as he spoke, heaven and earth changed, the great Tao retreated, and the great Tao laws descended. God-slaying flipping saber style. Break. Whoosh. Hum. The cold saber flashed, and a dragon's roar resounded in the sky. Tang Quan could no longer care about anything else. This saber would definitely kill him, but he had to kill Yi Qinghan. Otherwise, the Tang family would be in danger. Burn. Endless vitality. In order to kill the enemy in front of me, I'm willing to sacrifice my last glory. Tang Quan put his palms together and turned them into a sharp sword. His blood essence was burning and boiling, and his vitality was restored to the prime of his life in an instant. His aura became overwhelming. Both sides used all their strength without any compromise. One move was enough to decide life and death. Big bang! I'm invincible. Hum hum, hum. The two dragon-shaped shadows shattered the space. The four Great Limit Realm experts retreated frantically, unwilling to fight with them. Boom! The collision caused towering flames to erupt from the friction. The final burst of power was enough to destroy mountains and rivers. The earth caved in, and the mountain range collapsed. The shockwaves from the collision spread out in all directions. The entire Lulan imperial capital collapsed. Hundreds of experts flew out from the palace and broke through the collapsed buildings, trying to save as many people as possible. The powerful Imperial Guard camp came out, and some of their trump cards were exposed. They worked together to resist the shockwave. A powerful array appeared above the Imperial capital, protecting the final shockwave. However, there were still many people who died on the spot. They couldn't withstand the shockwave. Lu Guyun's eyes were about to split open, and his hatred overflowed. Even if Tang Quan could survive today, he would take the opportunity to kill him. Ah! After a mournful scream, Tang Quan's body was torn apart. Without any vitality to protect him, he couldn't withstand the impact. In the end, he only wanted to kill Yi Qinghan. As a result, he was the first to die. The broken sword in his hand was shot to the ground, piercing through the array's defense, and piercing into the ground, creating a huge pit. Yi Qinghan's flesh and blood splattered everywhere. No matter how strong his flesh and blood was, it couldn't withstand the soul of a Grand Marshal Venerable. Blood flowed from his body, and golden light flashed. His golden bones could be seen clearly. The wings on his back flapped wildly, but they only lasted for a breath's time, before retracting into his body. He lost control of his body and fell to the ground. The Great Limit Realm experts were in a stalemate. No one could kill Yi Qinghan, but no one could save him either. The people in Xianyuan City were also trying their best to resist the shockwave. They could only watch as Yi Qinghan fell from the sky without any defense. His body was wrapped in flames. This fall would definitely shatter his bones. God-slaying eagle. Emperor Yi clenched his fist and summoned the God-slaying eagle. He stepped on the God-slaying eagle and flew towards Yi Qinghan. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan's body was like a shooting star, crashing onto the God-slaying eagle's back. The God-slaying eagle's spine was almost broken, and its body fell rapidly. Screech! The God-slaying eagle let out a shrill cry and flapped its wings desperately, trying to regain control of its body. However, the impact was too great. Its body fell like a shooting star and crashed onto the ground. Boom! Dust and gravel flew everywhere. Emperor Yi also fell from the eagle's back. He was in a sorry state, but he hugged Yi Qinghan's body and took part of the impact for him. He fainted on the spot. The parrot showed its loyalty at this moment. It glared at the crowd with its white fur standing on end. It pretended to be aggressive and shouted, "If anyone dares to come near, I'll be furious. I'll burn down the mountains and rivers and kill all of you." The devil's dragon blade plunged down from the sky and stabbed into the ground. It was only 5 meters away from Yi Qinghan's body. Evil chi gushed out of the blade, making it look majestic. It was as if the blade had a soul and could intimidate all living things. Yi Qinghan's face was as pale as a sheet. Blood spurted out from his body, and he frowned. He had used all his strength to kill a powerhouse at the limit. The difference between the two was more than 1,000 miles. To be able to do this, everyone was shocked. The little person in his mind was pale, and his soul was weak. However, he was still struggling and fantasizing about Yi Qinghan's real body. "Wake up!" The little person's voice exploded in his mind. Yi Qinghan frowned and clenched his fists. The devil dragon saber flew into Yi Qinghan's hand. At this moment, he only felt safe with the saber in his hand. Damn! I didn't expect that I wouldn't be able to withstand a full blow from a powerhouse at the limit of the Life Palace realm. Yi Qinghan was in pain all over his body. He felt like he was being dismembered. Even breathing was painful. He could not help but groan. "It hurts!" Emperor Ye's face twitched and tears flowed. His body was covered in blood. This was not a light fall. She was not a body cultivator, and her body was even weaker than Yi Mingxi's. If it were not for the god-slaying eagle as a cushion, she would have died from the fall. Yi Qinghan struggled to sit up, and stood up with the help of the devil dragon saber. He moved to Emperor Ye's side and carried him. He took out a grade 5 spiritual fruit, and fed 1/3 of it to Yi Qinghan's mouth. He swallowed the remaining 2/3 in one gulp. A large amount of spiritual energy filled his body, and healed his injuries quickly. However, his eyes scanned his surroundings cautiously. "Master, don't worry about your injuries. I'm here." The parrot was loyal, and its aura exploded. It spread its wings, and stood in front of Yi Qinghan to protect him. However, it was funny no matter how one looked at it. Yi Qinghan looked at the parrot deeply. He and the god-slaying eagle were both severely injured. Emperor Yi was also in a coma. His spiritual pet had also fainted from the fall. He could only rely on the parrot. He had to trust it even if he did not want to. The parrot looked at everyone aggressively, and took a deep breath. Its body turned into a ball, and its spiritual energy surged. It could spit out a big fire at any time to burn all the enemies. It was very helpful at the critical moment. Yi Qinghan was very satisfied. He did not waste any more of his consciousness, and focused on recuperating. Yi Qinghan's combat strength shocked Dongfang Haoyue and the others. Xianyuan Chunxiao and Lu Guyan were shining brightly as they stood in front of Dongfang Haoyue and the others. They were ready to protect Yi Qinghan. Whether or not they could break through to the Tao Lord realm in the future depended on Yi Qinghan. Whoosh! Just when everyone thought the situation was settled, the last Life Palace realm powerhouse, Yi Kongcheng, suddenly appeared in the square out of thin air. It shocked everyone and made Lu Guyan and the others' hair stand on end. "Brother Yi, are you also going to participate in this matter?" Xianyuan Chunxiao asked with a pale face. Yi Kongcheng looked indifferent, and did not reply. He kept staring at Yi Qinghan. His fingertips trembled slightly, and the atmosphere in the square became extremely strange. Now, Yi Qinghan's fate was in Yi Kongcheng's hands. Yi Qinghan was severely injured, and had no defensive power. Obviously, the parrot could not stop Yi Qinghan. Even if an ordinary Life Palace realm powerhouse came, Yi Qinghan would be dead for sure. "Brother Yi, we are all powerhouses at the limit. Yi Qinghan may be our chance. Please think twice before you act," Lu Guyan said with a fist salute. "Brother Kongcheng, it was Yi Qinghan who killed Dongfang Yu and the others. He killed the hero of Shao Yunqing. Help us kill this bastard. I am willing to give you a lot of treasures as thanks," Dongfang Haoyue said in a deep voice. Chapter 138. Yi Kongcheng had the demeanor of an immortal. His whole body exuded a vast aura. His clothes fluttered in the wind. "I like this genius, and his surname is Yi. Maybe he and I were family 800 years ago. Why kill him?" Yi Kongcheng raised his eyebrows and asked. "You, Brother Tang Quan was also killed by him. Aren't you close friends for 100 years? Are you going to let him die with grievances?" Dongfang Haoyue asked in a deep voice. "It's a normal confrontation, a battle of life and death. Everyone has their own fate. Yi Qinghan didn't sneak attack, or play dirty tricks. What reason do I have to take revenge? Also, I don't understand. You keep saying that you want to kill people. Why can't others kill you? What kind of logic is this? Are you going to let others live?" Yi Kongcheng asked disdainfully. "Good. Brother Yi is really reasonable. I admire you." Xianyuan Chunxiao applauded loudly. Lu Guyan couldn't help but nod. She was overjoyed, but Dongfang Haoyue's face was ugly. This was a fierce slap in the face. "Dongfang Haoyue, I know you're dissatisfied, but don't you think about what you've done? Until now, have you found out that Tang Sheng and the others were killed by Yi Qinghan? Do you have any evidence? Even if he killed them, what's the reason?" Yi Kongcheng asked coldly. Dongfang Haoyue was speechless. His face was red and he was trembling with anger. There aren't many geniuses in Owl Falling Star. It's not easy to see one now, but you want to kill him. Will it kill you to give a little? Will it kill you to be magnanimous? You've lived for so long, and you don't even care about your face. You're a disgrace. I don't have friends like you. You're not worthy," Yi Kongcheng said coldly. A few words made Dongfang Haoyue and Situ Wanli's faces red. They didn't even have words to refute. Many people complained that no fifth-grade powerhouse had appeared in Owl Falling Star. Now that one had appeared, it was ridiculous that they didn't support him. Situ Wanli was speechless and didn't know how to defend himself. You said that you hoped for a genius to appear on Owl Fall Star, that you supported it, but it was all empty talk. In fact, as soon as a genius appeared, you felt that he was a threat and began to suppress him, wanting to kill him. Is that right? Yi Kongqing sneered and asked. Situ Wanli was flustered and exasperated. This face-slapping was endless. What about me? What did I do wrong? Even if I'm wrong, I learned it from you guys. I'll support you in spirit in killing Yi Qinghan. All the best. Yi Kongqing sneered. Don't worry. When Yi Qinghan recovers and the three of them fight against the two of you, I will also cheer for you and support you in spirit. Situ Wanli and Dongfang Haoyue. However, these two people's faces were already thick to the extreme. No matter how Yi Kongqing scolded them, they were unwilling to admit their mistakes. Instead, their faces were full of anger, as if Yi Kongqing was wrong. People who walk different paths cannot work together. From today onwards, this old man has nothing to do with you. After Yi Kongqing finished speaking, he immediately fell silent. He stood more than 10 meters in front of Yi Qinghan, neither close nor far. Seeing that there was no chance to kill Yi Qinghan, Dongfang Haoyue and Situ Wanli glanced at each other and turned to leave. After half an hour, Yi Qinghan slowly opened his eyes. His face was pale, and his blood was still blocked, unable to flow. This battle almost cost him half his life. Even after using all his trump cards, it was only a Pyrrhic victory. It had to be said that Tang Quan was indeed very strong. Thank you for your help, fellow Taoist. Yi Qinghan's voice was hoarse and incomparably majestic. No matter, I also cherish talent. It's not easy for a young genius to appear on Owl Fall Star. If I don't protect him, am I supposed to suppress him? Yi Kongqing's aura of righteousness filled the air, making people revere him. Yi Qinghan faintly smiled and lightly nodded. He said to Xianyuan Chunxiao and the others in a deep voice, today's kindness will be repaid in the future. Right now, I need to take the child to recuperate, so it's inconvenient for me to accompany you. Emperor Yi was still unconscious, but his complexion was much better. Yi Qinghan bent down and carried Emperor Yi. He walked towards Lu Outyan and said with a wry smile, I'll have to trouble Brother Lu to arrange a place for me to stay. Lu Outyan quickly turned around and led Yi Qinghan to the Crown Prince's palace at the side of the Imperial Palace. The Crown Prince's palace was protected by an array formation. The surrounding cracks were incomparably deep, but the Crown Prince's palace was safe and sound. Yi Mingxi and the others were inside the Crown Prince's palace. When they saw Yi Qinghan arrive, they quickly went to greet him. However, Yi Qinghan only nodded. His tired face made Yi Mingxi not bother him. The Crown Prince's palace was simple and dignified. There were at least 8 courtyards and an elegant side courtyard. Yi Qinghan was led to the elegant side courtyard. The courtyard was filled with lush green bamboo and was filled with spiritual energy. The fragrance of lotus leaves floated in the air. It was very peaceful. Brother Yi, feel free to stay here. If you need anything, come find me. If I can help, I will definitely help. Lu Outyan cupped his fists and said, Okay, don't let anyone disturb me for 2 days. I need to go into seclusion to recuperate and save my son. Yi Qinghan was not polite. When he met a friend who could get along with him, anything else was just nonsense. Lu Outyan retreated and sealed the door. Yi Qinghan was not in a hurry to recuperate. Instead, he chose to save Emperor Yi first. Emperor Ye's physical body was too weak. Even the slightest mistake could put him in danger. Seeing Emperor Ye's pale face, Yi Qinghan couldn't help but feel moved. This little girl clearly knew that it was very dangerous for her to pick him up. It was very likely that she would be smashed to death. However, she still rushed forward without hesitation. Clearly, she treated him as her family. However, Yi Qinghan was also glad that this silly girl was his meat cushion. Otherwise, he would have been smashed to pieces. You protected me once, I will protect you forever. Today's life-saving grace. I will engrave it in my heart. Yi Qinghan stroked Emperor Ye's forehead and muttered to himself in a low voice. Emperor Ye's body twitched. His young and tender face revealed a painful expression. Part of his body was smashed out of shape. It could be seen how terrifying the pain he was enduring was. Yi Qinghan helped Emperor Yi up. He poured the water origin energy in his body into Emperor Ye's body. The boundless vitality continuously healed his injured body. Water dragons coiled around his young and tender body. The terrifying injuries slowly healed. Although Emperor Yi was unconscious, he was twitching in pain. The divine zither imprint on his palm became restless. It emitted divinity and took the initiative to help its master recuperate. After an entire hour, Emperor Yi finally calmed down. He slowly woke up. His pale face was extremely pitiful. Continue sleeping. Everything will be fine when you wake up. Yi Qinghan's hoarse voice contained magnetism. It was dignified like a father and filled with doting love. It's good that you're fine, Emperor Yi said happily. Yi Qinghan smiled and sat on the edge of the bed. He used the water origin energy to recuperate. The esoteric law was extremely powerful. It could heal any injury. It was smooth and powerful. It flowed through his blood vessels and cleared his qi and blood. Gradually, color returned to his face. In the Umo cave, Xian Wuyu sat under the demon heart tree and directly absorbed the sap of the demon heart tree's origin energy. The demon heart tree that had stood proudly in the Umo cave for thousands of years dimmed. Its vitality dissipated as it was absorbed by Xian Wuyu. Xian Wuyu became extremely terrifying. His hair was as black as ink and his eyes were deep. In just over a month, he had advanced from the first step of the Grotto Heaven realm to the fourth step. He was only half a step away from the Life Palace realm. His combat strength had increased by more than 1,000 times. The demon heart tree's branches and leaves were yellow. Its spiritual energy was gone, and it was about to disintegrate. Xian Wuyu stopped absorbing the demon heart tree and sensed the terrifying power within his body. He smirked and muttered to himself, "This feeling is too wonderful. I wonder how many moves I'll need to defeat Yi Qinghan in order to become truly invincible." The demonic aura shrouded Xian Wuyu, making his temperament cold and evil. He stepped out of the Umo cave and flew on his sword. In just half a day, he had arrived at Flaming Cloud City. Flaming Cloud City was still bustling. Most people were selling demon cores and spiritual herbs. Suddenly, they were enveloped by a cold aura that made them tremble. Xian Wuyu stood in the sky and looked down at the crowd like a god looking down on mortals. He asked coldly, "Who saw Yi Qinghan?" Everyone looked up at Xian Wuyu. Even the experts at the peak of the Grotto Heaven realm felt the killing intent and did not dare to take a second look. The corner of Di Kong's mouth twitched. He could not understand Xian Wuyu and Yi Qinghan. These two monsters would become stronger every time they appeared. Moreover, they would become ridiculously strong. It was constantly refreshing his ability to accept them. He went to Lulan Empire's imperial capital. However, Di Kong looked up. The pressure increased as he said in a low voice. Before he could finish his sentence, Xian Wuyu turned and rushed towards Lulan Empire's imperial capital. Yi Qinghan was still in a state of cultivation. He suddenly opened his eyes and frowned. "It's this feeling again. It's Xian Wuyu. Why is this guy haunting me like a ghost?" Yi Qinghan was speechless. This time, the sense of danger was even stronger. He had entered the Grotto Heaven realm. He could almost instantly determine the source of the danger. Feeling the danger, Yi Qinghan took out a top-grade spiritual crystal and a 5th-grade spiritual fruit. He forcibly absorbed the energy and quickly healed his injured body. His whole body shone brightly as he bathed in divine light. Yi Kongqing and the other two experts sat together. They were stunned by Yi Qinghan's aura. They flew up to the void and looked at the Crown Prince Palace. They could not help but look at each other. Isn't this monster a little too terrifying? This time, even if he doesn't use his foundation, he should be almost as strong as us. Yi Kongqing said excitedly. I don't know about this, but his law of water is more profound. I'm afraid he has already reached the realm of small success. Xingyuan Chunxiao was very envious. If he could comprehend any law of profound, even if it was just the embryonic form, he would be much more terrifying than others of the same level. Maybe it's our chance. Lu Guiyan's face was red. He was getting closer and closer to the end of his life. Now that there was a glimmer of opportunity, he would not let it go. Just as the three of them were discussing, the sky suddenly darkened. Black clouds covered the sky, and a terrifying aura approached from afar. In an instant, it traveled 1,000 miles and appeared above the imperial capital. It looked down on the earth, and its divine sense was not restrained at all. Lu Guiyan was shocked. He looked up and saw another monster. He was very young and handsome. It was Xian Wuyu. However, the three of them did not know him. Xian Wuyu's aura was almost the same as Yi Qinghan's. It was very terrifying. Who are you? You are so brazen to sweep my Lulan Empire's imperial capital. You are too arrogant. Lu Guiyan warned in a cold voice. You call this arrogant? I am not arrogant if I don't make a move. Do you want to see how arrogant I am when I make a move? Xian Wuyu smiled evilly and asked disdainfully. Chapter 139. Xianyuan Chunshao and the others were speechless. They couldn't accept the fact that they had encountered two arrogant and overbearing youngsters in one day. Yi Kongqing frowned. Yi Qinghan's madness carried a domineering, awe-inspiring and protective aura. But Xian Wuyu's aura was filled with evil and murderous intent. It was incompatible with the Great Path, yet it was forcefully integrated into one, which made Yi Kongqing particularly uncomfortable. Get out of the way. My target is Yi Qinghan, not you. Just don't provoke me, Xian Wuyu said coldly. He's here for Yi Qinghan again. Xianyuan Chunshao and the others looked at each other. Yi Qinghan was so good at provoking trouble. Oh, it's Brother Xian. Your glabella is dark. There will be a bloody disaster today. The parrot flew out from the crown prince's palace and said with a wretched face. Xian Wuyu looked at the stupid bird, and his mouth twitched. He sneered and said, It's you again, stupid bird. You're not dead yet. Today I'll send you to the Western Paradise. Oh, don't target this divine bird. I'm doing this for your own good, the parrot said seriously. Is that so? Xian Wuyu clenched his fists. He hated the parrot to the bone. He hated it even more than he hated Yi Qinghan. Of course. Look in the mirror. Is your glabella dark? Is a bloody disaster approaching? The parrot said with certainty. Why didn't you calculate before you came out whether you would have a bloody disaster or not? This divine bird is blessed by the heavens. May the heavens bless me and allow me to live as long as the heavens. Whoosh! Xian Wuyu was too lazy to talk nonsense. He flicked his finger and turned it into an invincible sword qi. It broke through the void and went straight for the parrot. The parrot's feathers stood up and flew straight up. The sword qi went through its butt and tore a few white feathers. It was so scared that it screamed crazily. You pervert! A gentleman uses his mouth and not his fists. If you have the ability, then let's discuss. Die! Carefree Leisure's face was filled with black lines from the nagging. The evil spirit sword appeared, and the sword qi was unstoppable. Its speed was extremely fast, and the rumbling of the sword Dao was endless. It completely surrounded the parrot, and sword shadows were everywhere. The parrot was terrified. It exploded with speed and dived down to the ground. The angle was incomparably tricky, and in the final moment when Leisure had surrounded it, it was able to escape. Wait, Brother Xian, let's talk things over. I'll definitely surrender this time. I'd be an idiot to believe you. Look behind you. Yi Qinghan is trying to ambush you. Go to hell. What a despicable thing. A man and a bird dashed madly, sometimes soaring into the sky, sometimes plunging rapidly to the ground, and their angles and speeds were extremely strange. Stop. This is the imperial capital. There are many people here. Do you want to implicate the innocent? Lu Guiyan scolded coldly. Scram. This is my private matter. If you dare to interfere, more innocent people will suffer. Carefree Leisure didn't give face at all. The whole sky fell into darkness, and it was squeezing towards the imperial capital. The range was getting smaller and smaller, and the parrot was suppressed in the center, leaving it with no way out. The parrot cried out miserably. Lu Guiyan and the others had an ugly expression. Carefree Leisure's combat power was probably even more terrifying than Yi Qinghan. The dark elements that filled the sky were extremely dense, and it was definitely not something an ordinary person could do. Although they didn't know what the hell this thing was, they could feel the danger. If they fought with carefree leisure, they would end up like Tang Quan. What kind of elemental profound is this? I feel that it can invade the origin soul, Yi Kongqing asked in shock. The profound laws are not something we can touch. We don't even know how many profound laws there are. However, this kind of thing is not something we can contend against. Xianyuan Chunshao said helplessly. The parrot was constantly roaring. The sharp elemental profound was all around them. It seemed like it was nothing, but in fact, it would definitely die if it touched it. I am a divine bird. How can you bear to kill me? I really surrender. The parrot begged. I don't need a tasteless bird like you. I will send you to the next world. Carefree Leisure was cold and emotionless. He was not moved at all. He confined the parrot in a small space and smiled coldly. He stabbed the parrot's body with his sword. The sharp sword chi cut the parrot's body and made it spurt out blood. Boom! A figure rushed out from the Crown Prince Palace. The sword chi broke the void and slashed at Carefree Leisure's back. You are courting death. Get lost. Yi Qinghan was furious. Although the parrot had no moral integrity and was very immoral, it was still his spirit pet. Moreover, it often helped him. How could he let it die like this? Carefree Leisure was shocked. He couldn't care less about killing the parrot. He turned his hand and stabbed at the demon dragon blade behind him. Hum hum hum. The sword chi was crisscrossing in evil. A wisp of evil aura roared out from the tip of the sword and rushed towards Yi Qinghan's body. Boom! The tip of the sword collided with Yi Qinghan's demon dragon blade. The two terrifying forces shattered the river of stars and rushed towards the highest heavens. Carefree Leisure's figure could not withstand the aftershock and was sent flying. Carefree Leisure's face paled. He looked at Yi Qinghan in shock. He had not expected Yi Qinghan to become so powerful in just 2 months. The elemental law of darkness around the parrot had no one to support it, so it quickly dissipated. The parrot pathetically escaped from the encirclement and rushed towards Yi Qinghan with a look of terror on its face. It hugged its shoulders and bawled like a child. This was the first time the parrot had tasted hell. It had no chance of escaping. If not for Yi Qinghan's sudden appearance, it would have died without a doubt. Master, help me kill this guy. He almost killed me. The parrot roared angrily. Shut up. Yi Qinghan was speechless. A black line appeared on his forehead. The parrot was helpless and dejected, not daring to utter another word. Yi Qinghan could not help but frown as he looked at the dissipating elemental law of darkness. He had never comprehended this elemental law of darkness in his previous life. The elemental law of darkness was very difficult to comprehend, and it rarely appeared in the world. He had never imagined that Carefree Leisure would actually know it. However, this elemental law of darkness was completely different from what he knew. Is this the elemental law of darkness? Yi Qinghan asked, puzzled. You know quite a lot. You know the evil sword's inheritance, and you even know the law of darkness's elemental law of darkness. Carefree Leisure sneered. Your law of darkness's elemental law of darkness is very rudimentary. It also contains demonic chi. You couldn't have devoured the demonic heart tree's elemental law of darkness, right? Yi Qinghan was shocked. The demonic heart tree was very rare in the world. It contained the elemental law of darkness and demonic chi. Just who are you? How do you know so much? Carefree Leisure was inwardly shocked. He did not understand how Yi Qinghan could so quickly deduce that he had devoured the demonic heart tree. You don't need to care about that. However, let me remind you that it's best if you don't fight right now. Instead, focus on comprehending the elemental law of darkness. Otherwise, when the demonic chi suppresses the elemental law of darkness, you will fall into a demonic state and become a killing machine. No matter how high your cultivation is, you won't have the intelligence of a soul. So what? Yi Qinghan warned coldly. Carefree Leisure sneered. He looked at Yi Qinghan and felt that he could not see through him at all. Just a few casual words from him were enough to make him shudder in fear. I have the evil sword. Why should I fear a heart demon? I have already reached the other side of the sea of bitterness, the land of primal chaos. I still have to thank you for your words back then. Otherwise, why would I cross the sea of bitterness? Carefree Leisure coldly said, "Are you looking for me this time? Or do you want to fight me to the death?" Yi Qinghan asked with a frown. "It's not a fight to the death. This time, I'm looking for you to kill you. You won't be so lucky this time." Carefree Leisure disdainfully said, "Last time you escaped quickly. If this divine bird had arrived a bit earlier, your face would have been burned to a crisp." The parrot angrily roared, "Wait a minute. I don't care what kind of hatred you have. In any case, you are not allowed to fight in my imperial capital. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite." Lu Guiyan was furious. Within 2 days, 2 great battles had broken out in the imperial capital. The people of the empire were in a state of panic, and the ones who suffered were the common people. Yi Qinghan tightened his grip on the demon dragon's saber. He thought to himself, "This guy's luck is so strong. If I don't deal with him soon, it will be even more troublesome in the future. Why don't I just deal with him today? Carefree Leisure, this time, we have decided to fight to the death. If you want revenge, then follow me." After making up his mind, Yi Qinghan soared into the sky, leaving behind a cold sentence. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared from the imperial capital. "Master, where are we going?" the parrot curiously asked. "To the Blood Prison, at the end of the Demon Valley continent. Find a chance to completely kill Carefree Leisure," Yi Qinghan coldly replied. Carefree Leisure rode the wind and the waves, turning into a sharp sword and rushing toward Yi Qinghan. The Milky Way in the void flew backward, and the earth sped backward. Everyone only had time to raise their heads to take a look. They saw a black shadow flash by, and then the two disappeared. Yi Qinghan and the god-slaying eagle once again combined into armor. Their wings covered the sky and covered the sun. They were dozens of meters long, and with a slight movement, they flew dozens of miles away. Half a day later, Yi Qinghan and Carefree Leisure rushed to the Demon Valley continent at almost the same time. Yi Qinghan did not stop. His target was the end of the Demon Valley continent, the blood prison that was filled with blood and bones. The blood prison's sea of blood surged, and a baleful aura filled the air. The stench of blood was nauseating, and the sky was red. The surrounding rocks had been soaked in water for thousands of years, and were dyed crimson. Bones floated and piled up like mountains. It was a terrifying sight. There seemed to be a giant beast surging at the bottom of the sea, rolling up tens of thousands of waves that slammed toward the end of the void. Yi Qinghan flapped his wings and rushed to the sky above the blood prison. He was shocked to find that there were no laws descending here. Even the origin of water was suppressed. What is this place? It can actually suppress the great Tao laws. Yi Qinghan secretly muttered to himself. As soon as Carefree Leisure entered the blood prison, he immediately felt the endless sea of blood devouring everything. Even the origin of great Tao laws would be devoured here. His elemental profound meaning of darkness could not even display 1% of its power here. Carefree Leisure was incomparably powerful. His invincible king battle posture burst forth as he looked down at Yi Qinghan and said arrogantly, "I will kill you today even without using the elemental profound meaning of darkness. Whether you can kill me or not will depend on your luck. Today we might as well finish you." Yi Qinghan frantically gathered his aura and flapped his wings, rolling up the roaring sea of blood. "If I can't kill you today, I will definitely not seek revenge in the future," Carefree Leisure shouted. He gathered all the true essence in his body and turned it into a long dragon that gushed out from the evil spirit sword. The evil spirit sword Tao suppressed everything within 100 miles, and the eerie aura of the blood prison became even more sinister. Chapter 140. The evil sword principle suppressed the gloomy and terrifying blood prison. The blood waves instantly calmed down, as if the heavenly Tao had descended. The cold and domineering sword chi was filled with coldness and evil, as if a demon had appeared. The demon dragon saber also erupted with the aura of a mad dragon, fighting for the power of the blood prison. The aura of the blood prison was suppressed to the extreme, and the weak creatures were directly crushed into powder. The eerie blood sea was like the Dead Sea. It was extremely calm, without even a wave. "Master, I won't drag you down here. After you deal with him, I'll come back and cheer for you." The parrot's feathers bristled. It was suppressed by the aura here and could not breathe. After saying that, it fled. Yi Qinghan's mouth twitched. Obviously, he did not expect the parrot to help him. He locked his divine sense on Xian Wuyu and was extremely cautious. Xian Wuyu was not an ordinary person. At this time, he had forcefully absorbed the origin of the demon heart tree and comprehended the elemental profound. In addition, he had the demon spirit treasure body, which was 3 small realms higher than him. It was hard to say whether he would win or not. Even if he won, it would be a Pyrrhic victory. He did not know if there were any terrifying existences in the blood prison. He had to preserve some of his strength. Yi Qinghan secretly thought. The azure dragon arm blocked the demon dragon saber and merged with it, forcibly stealing most of the blood prison's aura. The great revered martial spirit roared out and supported the golden body. He looked down at Xian Wuyu, and his peak battle strength reappeared. The aura of a Tao master. You are indeed not an ordinary person. The reincarnation of a powerhouse. There is actually reincarnation with memories in the world. I really want to study your soul. I want to see what the reincarnation road is like. Xian Wuyu's eyes flashed. He was shocked, but more than that, he was happy. He did not care about such a powerful soul at all. His Tao heart was as stable as a rock. As long as they were at the same level, Yi Qinghan's soul from his previous life could not affect him. As expected of someone who has inherited the evil sword way. You were actually able to discover my martial saint spirit in an instant. Even Tang Quan and the others didn't. I have to say that you are very lucky. It's a pity. Yi Qinghan's killing intent surged. He had already made up his mind to not allow Xian Wuyu to have the chance to reveal his identity. What's a pity? Xian Wuyu arrogantly asked. It's a pity that you're going against me. Yi Qinghan instantly became incomparably tyrannical. A supreme aura rushed out of his body as he raised the demon dragon saber. Baleful aura filled the air and stirred up a myriad of waves. Combined with the law of water, it transformed into a roaring golden dragon. Hum hum hum. As soon as these words were spoken, killing intent overflowed in all directions. The two of them attacked at the same time. The blood prison, which was like a sea of death just a moment ago, raised 2 bloody canopies and crazily collided from the north and south. So what if I go against you? Do you still think you're a great martial revered? Xian Wuyu disdainfully mocked Yi Qinghan. The evil spirit sword in his hand was filled with an evil aura. The cold light from the sword made it seem even more evil. With a flick of the sword, it shattered the void and turned into a flying sword. It pierced through the bloody sky and went straight for Yi Qinghan. Boom boom boom. Hua hua hua. The blade and sword collided, and a curtain of blood spilled out. An endless rain of blood fell from the sky. The two separated as soon as they collided. Their bodies were bathed in a river of blood, and their auras were majestic. A probing attack was launched against the sea of blood. Waves of blood soared into the sky. The eerie skeleton emitted a golden radiance, announcing to the world how glorious its owner was when he was alive. Even if he had died for thousands of years and his soul had dissipated, the skeleton would still exist in the world. The powerful corrosive blood sprinkled on Xian Wuyu and Yi Qinghan's clothes. It directly melted their clothes, revealing their well-built muscles. Divine light flowed, and it was as if the Son of God had descended. Use your strongest battle power. How long are you going to test me like this? I like to decide the victor with a single move. It's either you die or I die. Xian Wuyu was incomparably arrogant as he shouted coldly. As you wish. Then I'll let you see how strong my peak battle power is. Yi Qinghan's domineering aura leaked out. The invincible war revered of those years had returned. The tyrannical Yi Qinghan, who fought against 100 revered martial artists by himself, and 10 great revered martial artists, whose names shook the entire Xiaolong region, had returned. He held the demon dragon saber tightly with both hands. His black hair danced wildly, and his blood-stained pants fluttered in the wind. The Saber God Chapter. Only those who control the saber can become one with the saber, turning it into a saber and accumulating power. They can seize the power of the heavens and earth, shake the universe, and intimidate eternity. Their golden body will exist forever, and they will stand proudly on top of the clouds. His voice was vicissitudes of life and majesty, and it was vast and mighty. Yi Qinghan had turned into a golden saber. His body was wild and tyrannical, and his saber and sword were unstoppable. Xian Wuyu looked at Yi Qinghan's terrifying aura. No matter how strong his Dao heart was, it was shaken until it was numb. He felt dizzy, and he could not hold the evil spirit sword in his hand. The evil spirit sword wailed, as if it wanted to submit to the saber god. Yi Qinghan's power had already reached its peak. His true origin boiled and poured into his legs and arms. At the same time, he exerted force and rolled up 1,000 miles of blood waves. He turned into the strongest heavenly dragon that cruised on the sea of blood. Extreme divine dragon steps. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan's figure filled the sky. It was as if countless divine sabers had broken through the void from the ancient world and surrounded Xian Wuyu. The illusory figure was so real that it was impossible to distinguish the afterimage from the real body. Heavy madness sky-splitting style. Whoosh! The saber split the heavens and the earth and shook eternity. The sea of blood surged and pressed down to the bottom of the sea. Evil spirit sword way. Boom boom boom. As soon as the sword way was used, evil chi was born. The gloomy and cold sword chi filled the blood prison and extended into the depths. Roar! Before the two people's crazy actions touched each other, an even more powerful aftershock erupted, alarming the supreme existence in the blood prison. A terrifying behemoth surged out from the depths, pushing all the blood waves in the depths to the edge of the blood prison, wanting to drown the Demon Valley continent and the entire Owlfall star. Carefree Leisure and Yi Qinghan were both stunned. They hadn't expected that before their strongest attack had even been launched, there would already be such a mess behind them. The terrifying aura that they had gathered with great difficulty stopped. They turned around and couldn't help but suck in a cold breath. Half of the giant's head was exposed. It was as big as a small mountain. The two horns on its head were like 5th grade or 6th grade combat weapons. Its huge eyes were as dazzling as the sun. The skin on its head was as bumpy as a mountain range. With a snort, 2 huge blood swords pierced through the sky. It was even more powerful than a Life Palace Realm warrior's attack. Half of its mouth was exposed. Its fangs were sinister and could definitely shatter a 5th grade combat weapon. What is this thing? Xian Wuyu did not care about revenge. He was terrified by the giant behind them. I've never seen it before. This thing is definitely a primitive creature from the ancient times. Otherwise, the path of the Owlfall planet will stop it from entering. If it can't stop it, the entire path of the Owlfall planet will collapse. Yi Qinghan's hair stood on end. This thing was beyond his understanding. It was at least at the peak of 5th grade. Even if he was at his peak, he might not be able to kill it. Let's get out of here quickly. Otherwise, once it gets angry, we won't be able to survive. The Owlfall planet might collapse. Yi Qinghan did not care about silencing them anymore. He turned around and fled toward the outside of the blood prison. Fuck. What kind of shitty place did you choose? Xian Wuyu was furious. They had also been tortured by the law of darkness, and their vitality was constantly dissipating. No one could bear it, let alone such a ferocious beast. Yi Qinghan and Xian Wuyu's stellar transposition were definitely the fastest in the world. No one in the same realm could be as fast as them. Pressure was their motivation. The two of them broke through the wind and waves, flying through the forest. It took them 4 hours to arrive, but it only took them 2 hours to leave. Their speed had doubled. Once they left the Demon Valley continent, the two of them fell into the Demon Valley forest, gasping for breath and weak from head to toe. They did not even know if they could stand up, let alone fight. The parrot was a spiritual beast after all. Although it was intelligent, it was more afraid of the Kuei ox. It did not even want to move now, let alone provoke Xian Wuyu. You two idiots, you actually woke up the Kuei ox. The great divine bird was almost killed by you two, before it could even become the divine emperor of all beasts. The parrot was stubborn. Even now, it still wanted to criticize the two of them for being ignorant. Chapter 141. The two of them fell into the Demon Valley and laid flat on a grassy plain. As they breathed in the fragrance of the grass, their blood gradually calmed down, and their stiff muscles relaxed. Yi Qinghan recovered faster than Xian Wuyu. He was the first to sit up and stared coldly at Xian Wuyu. Xian Wuyu's hair stood on end. "What are you trying to do?" Xian Wuyu asked cautiously. "What am I trying to do? You're looking for me, and you're asking me what I'm trying to do." Yi Qinghan's mouth twitched as his killing intent surged. He raised his demon blade and pounced at Xian Wuyu. Xian Wuyu's blood was filled with impurities. He had used all his strength to escape from the blood prison, and wasted a large amount of his essence. If he were to fight now, he wouldn't be able to use much of his combat strength. When he saw Yi Qinghan pouncing at him, he immediately mobilized the element of darkness around him to counterattack Yi Qinghan. He hid behind the element of darkness and tried his best to recover. The element of darkness was weak, but could block all attacks. It could even erode countless lives. In addition, there was a lot of devil qi in the element of darkness, making it even more sinister. Yi Qinghan's blade seemed to have hit a sponge. He couldn't use any strength at all. With a flash of light, Yi Qinghan's fingertips trembled as he put away the demon dragon blade. He formed a seal with his palms, and formed a water dragon that wrapped around the element of darkness. His palms were wrapped in the element of water, and he directly inserted them into the element of darkness. His divine sense was wrapped in the endless water element, and greedily comprehended the element of darkness. The patterns of the element of darkness appeared in his sea of consciousness. Suddenly, the divine martial imperial codex in Yi Qinghan's sea of consciousness moved. It automatically flipped open and forcefully absorbed the element of darkness. In the end, even the water element was plundered into his sea of consciousness and gathered into a ball. It was the true meaning of the element of darkness. It didn't have any offensive power, and constantly hovered above his sea of consciousness. Yi Qinghan was overjoyed. To be able to plunder the true meaning of an element, how lucky must one be? Xian Wuyu was furious. He felt the element of darkness in his body pouring out crazily. His control over the element of darkness was getting weaker and weaker. He felt like he was about to lose his Upanishad. His darkness elemental profound had been plundered from the demon heart tree, so he didn't have much understanding of it. If Yi Qinghan plundered all the darkness elemental profound, then he would never be able to control it again, unless he plundered it again one day, or comprehended it anew. "You're courting death," Xian Wuyu roared. He wanted to fight for the ultimacy, but how could he win against the Imperial God Martial Arts Code? The more he struggled, the more he lost. In the end, he was helpless. Seeing that he was about to lose all of the dark elements, he could only forcibly cut off the external dark elements. He immediately spat out a mouthful of blood essence, and looked at Yi Qinghan with a pale face. Yi Qinghan's lips curled into a faint smile. This true meaning of profound had come too easily. As long as he comprehended it for half a year, he would be able to comprehend a second true meaning of elements. Moreover, it would be a much more powerful element. "Thank you for your generous gift, Brother Xian," Yi Qinghan said calmly. Kikik, Idol Sky gnashed his teeth in anger, and glared at Yi Qinghan. He realized that if there was a spiritual pet, then there must be a master. This pair of despicable people, still trying to act innocent after taking advantage of him. "Don't be angry, I'm helping you. If you don't comprehend the dark elements, something will happen sooner or later. Why don't I help you comprehend it?" Yi Qinghan sneered and summoned the devil dragon saber. His aura surged as if he wanted to destroy everything. "How did you do it? How did you forcefully steal my dark elements?" Xian Wuyu was shocked and asked unwillingly, "Do you think I'll tell you?" Yi Qinghan snorted and gathered his aura and saber. The azure dragon arm shone with golden light as he raised the saber and slashed. Boom! The devil dragon saber transformed into a demonic dragon and shattered the shackles. The essence of the spiritual herbs on the ground was instantly sucked dry and turned yellow. The spiritual energy in the sky surged madly towards Yi Qinghan's body and turned into majestic true energy that poured out of the devil dragon saber. Evil sword Dao, die! Xian Wuyu's paradise sword Dao crazily crushed everything in its path. The great Dao rumbled, and the aura in front of him collapsed. The two attacks collided in an instant. Boom, boom, boom! The aftermath of the attacks surged into the Milky Way. The earth was undulating, and the lone mountain collapsed. The sand and stones pierced through the sky, and were ground into fine powder that was blown away by the wind. The two individuals' arms collapsed, and blood dyed the heavens. Golden blood was exposed outside, directly ignited, burning the void. Blood flowed out from the ghastly arms. The golden battle bones and sinister demonic bones flowed with radiance, incomparably powerful. True energy flowed and quickly healed their wounds. Their aura surged and the Emperor's aura rushed out of their bodies, representing the unparalleled powerhouses on the Alfal planet. Although they were only in the Paradise realm, their combat strength was higher than the average first and second steps of the Fate Palace realm. Powerhouses in the third and fourth steps of the Fate Palace realm would not have much chance of survival, and might not be able to compete with them. Since you've devoured my quintessence of the dark element, I'll devour your water quintessence. Xian Wuyu roared, and wanted to punch Yi Qinghan to death. Come and devour it if you can. Let's see how I'll take all the remaining dark element from you. Yi Qinghan's aura was unparalleled. His combat strength was at its peak again. With the soul of a grandmaster supporting him, the water quintessence and dark quintessence appeared at the same time, forming a yin-yang 8 trigrams that crushed Xian Wuyu. Xian Wuyu had less than 1/10 of the dark element in his body, and had not comprehended the quintessence, so he did not have much attack power. His evil sword style and frenzy sword style were on par. Now that he was at a disadvantage, Xian Wuyu could not help but feel angry. He had lost again. After losing 3 times in a row, Xian Wuyu was flustered and exasperated. Master, go for it. Kill him. I'll support you. The parrot hid far away. Even Yi Qinghan did not care about this kind of bird. If it was not useful, he would have roasted it and eaten it long ago. Damn it. The next time I see you, I'll chop you into minced meat. Xian Wuyu knew that there was no need to continue the fight. He turned around and fled after saying those words. How could Yi Qinghan allow him to escape? He raised his saber and charged over. With a slash of his saber, he sliced through space and time, shattering 1,000 li. The saber light slashed across Xian Wuyu's back, and the blood sword collided. Pooh! Xian Wuyu suffered a heavy blow, and spat out a mouthful of blood essence. Borrowing the power of Yi Qinghan's attack, he fled into the distance. However, Yi Qinghan chased after him relentlessly. Extreme Dao Divine Dragon steps were extremely fast, and the distance between them was instantly shortened. Void Shatter Stellar Transposition. Xian Wuyu's hair stood on end as he felt the aura of death envelop him. He could no longer care about anything else, and directly used the forbidden technique, Blood Shield technique. He spat out a mouthful of blood essence, and instantly shattered the void, disappearing without a trace. Yi Qinghan frowned. He could only feel a bit of Xian Wuyu's soul fluctuation around the space. There was no other trace of him. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath, put away the devil dragon saber, and returned to the Demon Valley. This guy's luck is very rich. It's understandable that he couldn't be killed. However, he didn't have time to reveal my identity this time. He won't be able to recover his battle strength in half a year. After this battle, he will definitely hide and comprehend the true meaning of dark element. The next time he appears, it will be difficult to deal with him. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath, put away the devil dragon saber, and returned to the Demon Valley. Master is mighty, the parrot cried out excitedly. Come up. Let's go back, Yi Qinghan said coldly. The parrot smiled embarrassedly and flew back to Yi Qinghan's shoulder, no longer uttering a word. Yi Qinghan sped through the void, reversing time and space. His speed was extremely fast, and he arrived at the Lulan Empire's capital after one day. Emperor Yi had already awakened. His radiance was dazzling. Wearing a 7-colored glazed princess dress, he looked noble and unparalleled. A zither song filled the capital with boundless vitality and joy. Emperor Ye's body was covered with spirit crystals. A powerful spirit gathering array gathered all the spirit energy in the sky and crazily surged into his body. His cultivation advanced by leaps and bounds, without any bottlenecks. Within 2 hours he had rushed to the 8 stars of the Bitter Sea realm, and there were no signs of stopping. The Zither Immortal Crimson Demon Physique was a unique treasure bestowed by the heavens. It was enough to instantly kill 10,000 spirits. Yi Mingxi listened to the zither song and danced with the fourth-grade set spirit sword. She had mastered the essence of the imperial sword technique. Her sword chi was swift and fierce, shattering the void. The speed of her advancement was actually a little slower than Emperor Ye's. Yi Qinghan arrived at the Crown Prince Palace. Seeing Yi Mengxi's terrifying advancement speed, he was extremely surprised. Emperor Yi had the zither immortal crimson demon physique. Even if he jumped to the grotto heaven realm in an instant, he wouldn't be surprised. However, Yi Mingxi's physique was clearly a mortal physique. How could she progress so quickly? Could it be that I have misjudged her? Yi Qinghan frowned. He wasn't sure if Yi Mengxi's advancement speed was a good thing or a bad thing. Yi Qinghan, who had a strong desire to control, stared at Yi Mengxi. She was not even 6 years old, and had a mortal physique. She had almost stepped into the grotto heaven realm. This kind of talent had already surpassed his own. Anyone would be alarmed. An hour later, Emperor Yi and Yi Mingxi had both reached the 9 stars of the Bitter Sea realm. They stopped cultivating and sat cross-legged on the ground. They went to the other side of the Bitter Sea and observed the birth of the great Tao in the land of chaos. The two of them had almost no inner demons. Their journey was unimpeded. Seeing this, Yi Qinghan's heart trembled. This kind of talent had already instantly killed countless people, including himself, who had a special physique. It paled in comparison. How is this possible? Could it be that they are young and ignorant of the ways of the world? Their hearts are pure, so they have no inner demons? Yi Qinghan's fingertips trembled as he muttered to himself. After half a day, the moonlight descended and poured down on the faces of the two little girls. They were sparkling and translucent like flawless jewels. Yi Mingxi was the first to wake up. She began to bitterly cultivate the profundities of the laws. Emperor Yi was still in an epiphany, comprehending the great Tao of the endless universe. At this moment the advantage was obvious. Emperor Ye's zither immortal crimson demon physique was ultimately superior to Yi Mingxi's. The longer one spent in the Bitter Sea, the more insights one would gain. Late into the night, Emperor Ye's body was illusory, as if he had merged into the great Tao. He was like a fairy, faintly discernible. If Yi Qinghan had not seen her with his own eyes, he would not have been able to sense her existence. Phew! Yi Qinghan exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. He knew that Emperor Yi was about to wake up. Yi Mingxi's face was filled with exhaustion. She opened her bright eyes and looked at Yi Qinghan in front of her. Hee, big brother. I'm about to break through to the grotto heaven realm. Yi Mingxi stood up as if she was presenting a treasure. Little master is wise and mighty, unparalleled in the world. The parrot flattered. Of course, Yi Mingxi's skin had been thickened by the parrot. She accepted the praise without any modesty. Mingxi, come here. Let me take a look at your spiritual sea. Yi Qinghan smiled bitterly. Yi Mingxi obediently walked in front of Yi Qinghan. She removed the defense of her spiritual sea. The boundless spiritual sea was vast and boundless. It was filled with the great Tao, and intertwined with the great Tao. Yi Qinghan was incomparably shocked. Chapter 142. The boundless sea of consciousness was vast and boundless, filled with great Taos and intertwined laws. The sea of consciousness was more like the universe. There was a cycle of great Tao. Yi Mingxi seemed to have two souls, one controlling the body, and the other controlling the sea of consciousness. They did not interfere with each other, but helped each other. Yi Qinghan's body tensed up. He had lived for hundreds of years and read countless historical records, but he had never seen such a terrifying scene. Is she the second life of a supreme almighty? Yi Qinghan took a deep breath. His worldview had been completely subverted by Yi Mingxi's sea of consciousness. Yi Mingxi's soul that controlled the sea of consciousness seemed to trust Yi Qinghan, and did not resist, allowing Yi Qinghan to do as he pleased. When he saw Yi Mingxi's sea of consciousness clearly, he realized that her short time on the other side of the sea of bitterness was not because she lacked epiphanies, but because she was involved in almost all the great Taos and laws. She quickly understood them. There was no need to waste time. Yi Qinghan was increasingly certain that Yi Mingxi was definitely not the first life, but a reincarnated body. It was just that she did not have a soul for the time being. She was at least at the divine martial realm in her previous life. She was much stronger than me. Yi Qinghan looked at the ethereal laws and profound meanings. They were difficult to understand, but Yi Mengxi seemed to be born with them. He smiled bitterly and shook his head. There were too many mysteries in the world, and he did not understand even 1/10,000th of them. After leaving the sea of consciousness, Yi Qinghan rubbed Yi Mengxi's head and said softly, "Rest first. Go back and comprehend the sea of bitterness before breaking through to the grotto heaven realm." Yi Mengxi nodded and left first. Emperor Yi woke up slowly and opened his dim eyes. They seemed to reflect the chaos, deep and boundless, making people not dare to look at them directly. "Master, my eyes are completely dark." Emperor Yi trembled. His vision was pitch black, but his consciousness was clearer. He could even see the great Daos. Yi Qinghan frowned. The higher Emperor Yi's cultivation was, the more powerful the seal on his eyes would be. According to this calculation, when he reached the realm of Tao Master, wouldn't his divine sense be sealed as well? Gently lifting his eyelids, Yi Qinghan discovered that Emperor Yi's pupils had an illusory image of a divine zither, which happened to seal his eyes. It was incomparably majestic, like an ancient imperial weapon. Once it left his body, it could crush an unparalleled expert. It shouldn't be a problem. The divine zither must have done this for a reason. Maybe it wants you to use your heart to comprehend the way of the zither, and shield yourself from the evilness of the world, so that you can keep your heart pure and comprehend the purest way of the zither. Yi Qinghan speculated softly. If I'm not wrong, once you've stabilized your state of mind, and are able to accept the mercilessness of the great Tao, the divine zither will automatically break your seal. For now, Master will be your eyes, so there's no need to think too much. Rest first. With two more monsters around him, Yi Qinghan's pressure multiplied. After comforting Emperor Yi, he returned to his room and closed himself to comprehend the profound meaning of the dark element. With a large amount of the dark element in his sea of consciousness, it was much easier for him to comprehend the profound meaning of the dark element. Some terrifying geniuses needed hundreds, or even thousands of years, to comprehend the profound meaning of the laws without the dark element. However, with the dark element, all the textures appeared in his sea of consciousness. He only needed to slowly strip away a part of the dark element to comprehend the profound meaning of the laws. Yi Qinghan fell into silence as soon as he entered seclusion. No one would have thought that he would be in seclusion for half a year. There was an invisible barrier around the room that pushed away anyone who approached it. Only Emperor Yi could enter and leave freely. Even after Emperor Yi entered the room, he didn't disturb Yi Qinghan. He merely played the guqin to the side, purifying Yi Qinghan's soul and expelling his exhaustion. After the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, he would leave. The cycle repeated itself, returning every day for half a year. During this half a year, many major events happened on the Owl Falling Star. The younger generation sprouted like bamboo shoots after a spring rain. Countless young experts were mercilessly killed. Emperor-level expert, the #1 expert of the Owl Falling Star, Ling Chun, had his origin stolen and his essence devoured by Xian Wuyu. This shocked the entire Owl Falling Star. However, this was only the beginning. Soon after, Wang Shizhi was also devoured, causing the younger generation experts to panic. No one dared to rise up again. Lu Outyin cultivated the great reincarnation sword art painstakingly. His reincarnation intent had already formed an embryonic form, and his progress was extremely fast. In addition to his discussions with Yi Mengxi, he broke through to the Grotto Heaven realm within 3 months. With one sword, reincarnation appeared. Half a year later, he entered the second step of the Grotto Heaven realm and rose up again. He challenged Xian Wuyu, but lost miserably in one move. However, he was saved by Yi Mengxi. With the help of Emperor Yi and the 3 experts, Xian Wuyu was defeated and fled. The expert at the end of his lifespan had already fallen into a deep slumber. He hoped to delay until Yi Qinghan woke up and obtained his true teachings. Perhaps he could break through to the Tao sovereign realm. The Owl Falling Star was now the world of the younger generation. After Lu Outyin failed once, he disappeared and returned to the Crown Prince Palace to cultivate. His reincarnation sword art became even more refined. However, his talent was not as good as Yi Mingxi's. Yi Mingxi actually managed to cultivate the great reincarnation sword art to the small success stage within half a year. She could actually match Lu Outyin with just her physical body. Lu Outyin smiled bitterly. Yi Mingxi really knew how to shock people. However, the most terrifying one was not Yi Mingxi, but Emperor Yi. At this moment, her eyes had been completely sealed by the divine zither. There was no light at all. She did not dare to open her eyes at all. Otherwise, everything in front of her would be obliterated. Even if it was a Grotto Heaven Realm expert, their Tao heart would be shattered and they would die. Emperor Yi was not surprised by this skill. Instead, he felt a little hopeless. He felt like a monster. Other than occasionally playing the zither to help Yi Mingxi and Lu Outyin comprehend the reincarnation sword art, he spent the rest of his time hiding in Yi Qinghan's room. On this day, a strong dark element gushed out from Yi Qinghan's room. It then spread throughout the Crown Prince Palace. After an hour, it covered the sky and the sun. The entire imperial capital was plunged into darkness. It was as if doomsday was coming. However, the dark element did not carry any terrifying offensive power. Otherwise, the entire imperial capital would turn into a ghost town in an instant. It would turn into hell and devour countless lives. Asterisk roar. Asterisk after the dark element enveloped the imperial capital, a ray of water elemental profound turned into a silver water dragon. It swam between heaven and earth. It contained endless vitality and comforted the living beings in the city. The dark element and water element intertwined with each other. It was dense and surging. Instantly, it woke up the three experts who were in a deep sleep. They were not surprised but happy. The appearance of so many elements meant that Yi Qinghan was about to wake up. Whether we can survive this will depend on Taoist Yi. Yi Kongqing said nervously. You still have more than 10 years of life. I only have 2 years left. I will die at any time. Even if Taoist Yi is willing to help, you will not be able to reverse the situation. Lu Guiyun smiled bitterly. The arrogance of a general in the past had been gradually eroded by time. What was left was the sadness of a hero past his prime. Xianyuan Chunxiao was similar to Lu Guiyun. He was past his prime. His blood essence was dim, and he would die at any time. Suddenly, there was a burst of light. The dark element and water elemental profound dispersed. The imperial capital was bright again. A horrible aura was awakened in the Crown Prince Palace. It was as if an ancient expert had appeared. It was majestic. Yi Qinghan walked out of the Crown Prince Palace. His hair was as black as ink. It reached his waist and swayed with the wind. His handsome face had become a little pale because he had not seen the sun for a long time. However, his temperament became deep and ethereal. He was like an element that existed but could not be seen. In the second step of the Tao Insight realm, although he had only broken through a small realm in half a year, his combat strength had soared. Taoist Yi, congratulations on your breakthrough. Xianyuan Chunxiao and the others immediately greeted him and said respectfully. Yi Qinghan's deep eyes glanced at them, as if he had seen through their origin. He knew that they were about to die. They came out to greet him at this time. They definitely wanted to get his advice and hoped to break through to the Tao Master realm. Well, sorry to disturb you, Yi Qinghan said lightly. Don't mention it. Taoist Yi, do you have time to discuss the skills of cultivation? Lu Guiyun said hurriedly. Yi Qinghan looked at the anxious Lu Guiyun and could not help but smile. He could understand. Everyone would be anxious when they knew that they only had 1 or 2 years left. If there was hope, they would not let go of any opportunity. However, these 3 people had saved his life. They were not bad people. They had their own bottom line and principles. It was okay if he could help them. Moreover, after entering the Fate Palace, he would enter the Xiaolong territory sooner or later. He needed some help. Lu Outyin was one of the talents that he had cultivated. Unfortunately, his realm was too low. Prepare some materials. I will help you if I can. Whether you can enter the Tao Master realm or not depends on your luck, Yi Qinghan said frankly. What materials? Xianyuan Qinxiao's eyes lit up, and he asked excitedly. The materials of the Tao Master's precious pill. I want to refine the Tao Master's precious pill myself. Yi Qinghan said proudly. He still believed in the power of the Tao Master's precious pill that he had refined. With the Tao Master's precious pill that he had refined, the chances of breaking through the Tao Master realm would be increased by 40% to 50%. Even if their qi and blood had withered, there was still a 20% to 30% chance. In addition to his own comprehension, there was still a 50% chance. I will give you a prescription. The more materials, the better. If you can refine 7 or 8 Tao Master's precious pills, you won't die even if you want to. Yi Qinghan said proudly as he flicked his finger. A wisp of divine sense rushed into Xianyuan Chenxiao's sea of consciousness. Xianyuan Chenxiao, Yi Kongcheng, and Lu Guyan's faces were flushed. They were trembling and were too excited to speak. Originally, it was dark in front of them, and they would fall into the abyss at any time and be smashed to pieces. Now there was suddenly light in front of them, guiding them to the bright road. How could they not be excited? I will go back to the kingdom of Qingyang. I will be back in 1 month or 2 months. You go back and take care of your qi and blood. After I come back, you can start refining the Tao Master's precious pill. After Yi Qinghan finished speaking, he turned back to the Crown Prince Palace. He took Emperor Yi away and flew into the sky. In an instant he was hundreds of miles away. Xianyuan Chenxiao, Lu Guyan, and Yi Kongcheng felt their blood boiling and their eyes filled with tears. They inexplicably believed in Yi Qinghan's words. If other Tao Insight Realm experts said such words, they would have slapped them. Ha ha ha. Thanks to Ao Tian's discerning eyes. Otherwise, we can only wait for death. Lu Guyan said excitedly. Yi Kongcheng was excited. If he hadn't stood firmly in front of Yi Qinghan half a year ago, how could he have gotten such a good thing today? If you want to get something, you have to pay first. Chapter 143. It had already been a year and a half since Yi Qinghan left the Heavenly Sword sect. However, without the suppression of the King Manor, the Heavenly Sword sect had advanced by leaps and bounds, quickly entering the sights of the kingdom. The kingdom of Azure Sun seemed to have received some news and vigorously supported the Heavenly Sword sect. Currently, the Heavenly Sword sect was incomparably grand. It had expanded 5 times its original size and had close to 10,000 disciples. However, the Heavenly Sword sect only had 300 disciples. However, each of them had a profound cultivation base and were ranked in the top 1,000 of the Heavenly Sword sect. If one wanted to join the Heavenly Sword sect, they had to undergo a strict examination. Relying on connections was obviously impossible. The Heavenly Sword sect's glory was due to Yi Qinghan. Early in the morning, the Heavenly Sword sect's martial practice field had nearly 10,000 disciples practicing their basic sword techniques. Their auras were like rainbows, and their faces were brimming with excitement and glory. The younger generation of the Kingdom of Azure Sun all viewed joining the Heavenly Sword sect as an honor. Those who could walk out of the Heavenly Sword sect and join the Kingdom of Azure Sun's army would be at least a centurion. The annual examination had just ended, and 80% of the youths had been eliminated. Only about 200 disciples had been accepted. The Heavenly Sword sect had snatched the top 5 spots. Even the sect head's peak couldn't compete with them, causing the other 7 peaks to be dissatisfied. Refining peak had already declined. Apart from a few young disciples who were unwilling to leave, bitterly guarding the peak, hoping to regain its glory one day, the various courtyards were overgrown with weeds, and it no longer resembled the main peak of the Heavenly Sword sect. Outside the Heavenly Sword sect, a foolish little fellow was kneeling. He looked to be around 7 or 8 years old, and his clothes were tattered and tattered. He looked like a native child who had walked out of a small ravine. However, his eyes were fixated on the gate of the Heavenly Sword sect, unwilling to leave. Little fellow, hurry up and leave. The Heavenly Sword sect doesn't want trash. You can't even pass the first examination, so what are you doing here? When a young disciple saw that the child was still unwilling to leave after kneeling for 2 days, he couldn't help but take out 2 snow-white steamed buns and give them to him. He reminded him that even if he knelt here until he died, the Heavenly Sword sect wouldn't accept him. Esteemed Lord, I don't have talent, but I can slowly learn. Others can learn sword techniques in 2 hours, but I can learn them in 20 hours, 2 days, or even a month. I'll definitely be able to learn them. Please give me a chance, said the child. My words don't count. With your talent, you can't even open up the most basic sea of qi. What kind of Tao can you cultivate? Hurry up and go down the mountain. The young man finally lost his patience and kept waving his hand as he berated them. The child was still unwilling to leave. He chewed on the steamed bun and lowered his head in silence. Yi Qinghan brought Emperor Yi with him as they sped through the sky. They didn't alert anyone. Originally, they were going to take the alchemy furnace from Weapon Refining Peak and leave quietly. However, when they saw the child's stubborn expression, they couldn't help but watch him curiously. Whoosh! Zhang Xian's silhouette flickered, and he appeared before the entrance of the Heavenly Sword sect. He lowered his head to look at the child, and he realized that his talent was indeed ordinary, making him unsuitable for cultivation. When the young disciple saw Yi Qinghan and Emperor Yi, who had his eyes closed, he was stunned. However, he was intimidated by the terrifying aura emanating from Yi Qinghan's body. He quickly bowed and said, "May I know the purpose of Senior's visit?" Yi Qinghan waved his hand, indicating for him to step aside. Then he lifted the child up. The child's pure eyes didn't have any impurities. Apart from his talent, he was quite cute. "Why do you want to cultivate?" Yi Qinghan's voice was hoarse as he asked in a deep voice. "My parents and the villagers were killed by bandits. I want to take revenge." "What happens after you take revenge? Do you still want to cultivate?" "Of course I want to cultivate. I want to become strong and kill all the bandits and protect the mortals. Esteemed Lord, can you accept me as your disciple? Do you know that your talent is very poor? It's very likely that your enemy will die of old age before you can open up your sea of qi." Yi Qinghan raised his eyebrows and asked, "I can work very hard to learn. I can also chop firewood and cook, catch fish and make soup. Esteemed Lord, please accept me as your disciple. I can serve you. As long as you teach me how to open up my sea of qi, I will definitely succeed. If 1 month isn't enough, I can use 2 months. Hard work can make up for my lack of talent." The child was very serious. He was so persistent that it made one's heart ache. "If I help you take revenge, kill your enemy, and give you some gold and a house, will you give up on cultivating?" Yi Qinghan asked indifferently. "I still want to cultivate and help others," the child replied stubbornly. Yi Qinghan smiled faintly. His eyes flashed as he thought of establishing his own sect. There were many children like him on Alphal Planet. They were intelligent and had strong wills. If they could be nurtured well, they would be a powerful helper in a decade or so. They would be of great help to Yi Qinghan's revenge in the future. "Master." Emperor Yi grabbed Yi Qinghan's clothes. He seemed to be moved by compassion. "Follow me." After Yi Qinghan finished speaking, he held Emperor Ye's hand and walked towards the Heavenly Sword sect. The disciple behind him looked at his back and didn't dare to stop him. The child's eyes lit up. He followed Yi Qinghan and rushed in. He didn't leave his master's side for fear of losing him. Yi Qinghan deliberately increased his speed. The child risked his life to rush up. He was so tired that he was panting. In the end, he used his hands and feet to support himself with his strong will. The Heavenly Sword sect was about 100 meters high from the foot of the mountain. It was extremely steep. Even the disciples of the Heavenly Sword sect would need to spend some effort to climb up. However, the child was able to catch up quickly. There were many wounds on his body. Blood flowed freely, but he didn't cry out in pain. His will was much stronger than his peers. Yi Qinghan smiled. He was very satisfied with this test. On the path of cultivation, talent was important. However, the most important thing was still one's will and one's dedication to the great Tao. Countless years of history had recorded that many peerless experts had average talent. They seemed stupid in the beginning. However, in the end, these people would surpass their predecessors and become experts. There were many who had reached the divine martial realm. "What's your name?" Yi Qinghan asked when he reached the top of the mountain. "Master, my name is Taiwa." The child was excited. He ignored the blood flowing from his hands and said loudly, Don't call me master. I only agreed to bring you along. If I establish a sect in the future, and let you be a servant, are you willing? Yi Qinghan probed again. Oh, the disappointment on Taiwa's face was obvious. However, he quickly recovered and said, as long as master is willing to teach me how to open up my qi si, I'm willing to be a servant. Yi Qinghan nodded and said in a deep voice, remember the answer you told me today. After cultivating for 1,000 years, don't forget your original intention. From today onwards, I will accept you as an in-name disciple. Whether you can become an official disciple will depend on your luck. Taiwa knelt down respectfully and kowtowed a few times. His head was bleeding. The custom of some places was that the more kowtowed, the more respect one had. It seemed that Taiwa's respect for Yi Qinghan came from the bottom of his heart. Hehe, I have a little junior brother now. Come and greet senior sister. Emperor Yi clapped happily. Her eyes trembled, but she still didn't dare to open them. Taiwa kowtowed a few more times to Emperor Yi, and obediently called her senior sister. Emperor Yi smiled like a flower. Her small hand trembled, and a few second-grade pills appeared in her hand. She handed them to Taiwa and said gently, follow senior sister from now on. This is a greeting gift. Taiwa looked at Yi Qinghan timidly. He wanted to reach out to take it, but he didn't dare to. She's your eldest senior sister. She gave it to you. Take it. After Yi Qinghan finished speaking, he turned around and walked towards the entrance of the Heavenly Sword sect. As soon as he entered, he saw the thousands of disciples on the training field practicing in unison. They were cultivating the basic sword technique of the 9 swords technique. They did have some momentum, but they lacked some essence, energy and spirit. Only a few people could succeed. With a glance, he did not see any genius that could catch Yi Qinghan's eye. He then walked towards the weapon refining peak. One big and two small, they were very unfamiliar. But their aura and aura far surpassed the powerful elders of the sect. The thousands of disciples were stunned, forgetting to cultivate. The bitter sea-stage elders were shocked, looking at Yi Qinghan in disbelief. They fiercely rubbed their eyes, afraid that they had mistaken him for someone else. It's senior brother Yi Qinghan. It was unknown who shouted, but the thousands of people on the training field instantly became excited. They directly surrounded him, their faces full of worship and respect. We pay our respects to senior brother Yi. The disciples all bowed and said in unison. Yi Qinghan's aura was captivating, handsome and imposing. He suppressed everyone so much that they didn't dare to move. The disciples of the Breaking Sword Peak pay their respects to senior brother. A young expert with a jade-like demeanor took the lead. He led nearly 300 disciples forward and said excitedly. They had joined the sword breaking peak. How could they not know Yi Qinghan? He was at the early stage of the blood ignition realm. He cut off Ma Rugi's legs with one saber, raised the Duke's residence with one move, and suppressed thousands of soldiers with one move. Who could compete with him? The Kingdom of Azure Sun not only did not take revenge on the Sky Sword sect, but also supported them. It was all because of this person. Yi Qinghan was their idol. How could they not be excited to see their idol? Yi Qinghan was emotionless. He had no feelings for the sword breaking peak. This time, he came to the Sky Sword sect mainly for the spirit refining furnace and the enlightenment lotus in the Iron Tower. Yes, continue to cultivate. I still have things to do, Yi Qinghan said coldly. Senior brother Yi, teach us a move or two. The current senior brother of the sword breaking peak, Chen Luo, asked excitedly. The moves are in your heart. Why do you need me to teach you? Yi Qinghan said indifferently. He said to Emperor Yi, take Taiwan and wait for me here. I'm going to get something, and we'll be back soon. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan's figure flashed, and went straight to the back mountain of the weapon refining peak. Everyone in the martial arts practice field forgot about their cultivation. They stared at Ren Huangyi with their eyes wide open. Although Ren Huangyi did not open his eyes, his peerlessly beautiful face was enough to mesmerize all living things. Are you senior brother Ye's younger sister, Miss Mengxi? Chen Luo asked curiously. What nonsense are you talking about? Don't talk nonsense if you don't know. Junior sister Meng, she should only be 7 years old. This fairy is at least 15 years old. She's a perfect match with senior brother Yi. Is there a need to talk about her identity? A disciple who had been in the Sky Sword sect for at least 3 years said proudly. Emperor Yi pursed his lips and did not say anything. Other than Yi Qinghan, he maintained a certain level of vigilance towards everyone else, let alone these people whom he had never met before. Men, what are you all standing there for? Quickly bring a chair for the fairy and some spirit fruits. Lin Hong was now the senior brother of the sword-breaking peak of the Sky Sword sect. His cultivation was close to the 5th star of the Bitter Sea realm and was comparable to an elder. Chapter 144. The thousands of disciples on the martial arts practice field couldn't be bothered to cultivate. They all surrounded Emperor Yi, thinking that he was Yi Qinghan's Dao companion. They all had flattering expressions. Don't come near me. Emperor Yi was vigilant. The birthmark on his palm was restless, and his eyes were about to open. Lin Hong felt the terrifying killing intent on Emperor Ye's body and hurriedly shouted for everyone to retreat. He cupped his fists more than 10 meters away and said, "Fairy, don't be nervous. We are all senior brother Ye's junior brothers. We have no ill intentions." Then a disciple brought over a chair. Lin Hong took it, wrapped it with his quintessential essence, and slowly sent it to Emperor Yi. Emperor Yi sat down and gradually relaxed. He took out a 4th-grade zither from his yin and yang ring and hugged it in his arms. He emitted a faint pressure, preventing anyone from approaching. Only Taiwa looked at everyone with envy, but he didn't know that his master was much more terrifying than these people. "Taiwa, here's a fruit for you." Emperor Yi casually took out a 4th-grade spirit fruit with golden light flowing around it and threw it to Taiwa without hesitation. Everyone drooled. Oh my god, a 4th-grade spirit fruit is eaten just like that? Lin Hong's forehead was covered in sweat, and he was instantly speechless. Taiwa was too young and didn't understand that Emperor Yi casually threw a priceless 4th-grade spirit fruit to him. It was a treasure that could be fought over in the market. After kneeling for a few days, he was definitely hungry. He picked it up and gnawed on it. He felt a wave of comfort all over his body. The impurities in his body were all refined and expelled from his body. It emitted a foul smell that was blown away by the wind. Go take a bath." Emperor Ye's brows moved slightly as he said with a smile. Lin Hong ordered a trusted junior brother to send Taiwa to take a bath. Everyone in the square was discussing, but they didn't dare to approach Emperor Yi. Emperor Yi gnawed on the red-leaf fruits one after another, causing everyone's heart to ache. Breaking Sword Peak's peak lord, Wang Shufei, immediately rushed down the peak when he heard that Yi Qinghan had returned with Emperor Yi. He laughed loudly and said, "Ha ha ha, great-grandson. I heard that you've returned with your granddaughter-in-law. Come, let grandfather take a look." Wang Shufei's speed was very fast. Before Yi Qinghan left, he had secretly thrown a 4th-grade secret technique to him. Now he was already close to the Grotto Heaven realm. 9 stars of the Bitter Sea. It only took him a few breaths to reach the martial arts practice field from the Broken Sword Peak. In the blink of an eye, he had rushed behind Emperor Yi. Emperor Yi abruptly turned around and pulled the strings with his 5 fingers. The strings of the 4th-grade guqin were almost torn apart. The terrifying sound of the guqin pierced through everything and headed straight for Wang Shufei. Wang! The sound of the zither was sharp and contained a murderous aura. It filled the martial arts arena and instantly suppressed Wang Shufei. Wang Shufei felt as if he had been attacked by a supreme expert. He didn't even have time to mobilize his true essence before he was sent flying dozens of meters away. All the blood vessels in his body ruptured and blood flowed out. His head was dizzy, and he coughed up blood nonstop. Everyone in the martial arts arena was stunned. Most of the disciples were so frightened by the sound of the zither that their legs went soft, and they collapsed to the ground. Their faces were as pale as paper. Lin Hong's heart was beating wildly, and his expression was ugly. He felt as if his heart had been shattered by the sound of the zither. He was stunned by Emperor Ye's sudden outburst. Emperor Yi looked harmless and was like the cutest girl next door. But once he exploded, he could cause the sky to crack and the earth to collapse for thousands of miles. Cough cough. Wang Shufei was in a sorry state. He was bleeding from all 7 orifices, and his clothes were tattered like a beggar. He crawled up from the ground with difficulty, and looked at the little girl in front of him in horror. He kept retreating. When Jian'ao and the other sect masters and peak masters heard that Yi Qinghan had returned, they all came out of seclusion to welcome him. Looking at the disheveled Wang Shufei, they all laughed and were secretly happy. In the past year, the Sundering Sword Peak had been glorious. Every time the best disciple of the Sky Sword sect was taken away by the Sundering Sword Peak, it had already caused dissatisfaction. Oh, isn't this Brother Wang? A great expert of the 9 stars of the Bitter Sea. You're about to catch up to the Grand Elder. But you've been beaten to such a state. Jian'ao ridiculed. Many disciples couldn't help but laugh. Especially the disciples of the Sundering Sword Peak. They didn't know whether to laugh or cry. If it was someone else who had beaten their master, they would have already turned hostile. But the one who had beaten their master was someone brought back by Yi Qinghan. Moreover, it seemed that their relationship wasn't ordinary. It could only be said that the flood had washed over the Dragon King's temple, and they didn't recognize each other anymore. The corner of Wang Shufei's mouth twitched. He wanted to approach Emperor Yi, but didn't dare. And Emperor Yi was even more wary of the crowd. He hurriedly said, "You're not allowed to come near me. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. Fairy, don't misunderstand. The person you just beat is Senior Brother Ye's grandfather. Don't misunderstand." Lin Hong hurriedly explained. Ah. Emperor Ye's hand trembled. The strength he had used just now was definitely not light. Although there was no killing intent, it was enough to deal with the Bitter Sea stage expert. She clearly didn't expect that he would actually beat up Yi Qinghan's grandfather. I'm sorry, granduncle, I didn't know it was you. Emperor Ye's face flushed red as he hurriedly apologized. Wang Shufei was completely speechless. This time he had been beaten up unjustly, but the little girl had already apologized. What else could he do? Moreover, she was brought back by Yi Qinghan. What if she really was his granddaughter-in-law? It's okay. This little bit of strength is nothing to me, Wang Shufei said while waving his hand. His mouth was still bleeding. Everyone laughed wildly, especially the experts of the older generation. They felt that this slap to the face was even more satisfying than slapping themselves. At this moment, Yi Qinghan carried the refining divine furnace and flew over from outside the city. Landing on the martial arts arena, he saw that Wang Shufei was covered in blood. Emperor Ye's expression was awkward. He knew that it was definitely Emperor Yi who had acted. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. My son is too sensitive, please forgive him. These 4th grade spirit pills are to compensate you. Yi Qinghan casually tossed out the remaining 4th grade spirit pills, leaving everyone dumbfounded. This is too generous. This injury is too direct. Wang Shufei's fucking luck is too good. If I had known, I would have rushed over first and let this little girl hit me. These spirit pills would have been mine. Jian'ao and the others all thought the same. They secretly felt pity in their hearts as they looked at Wang Shufei with envy and jealousy, drooling over the 4th grade spirit pills. Wang Shufei's mood immediately improved. He wanted Emperor Yi to hit him a few more times. But he didn't know that Emperor Yi just didn't want to kill him. Otherwise, a strand of zither music would have destroyed his soul. Yi Qinghan acted swiftly. He placed the several tons of refining divine furnace on the ground and directly said, "Jian'ao, call the Sky Sword Sect's Grand Elder over. I want to do business with you." Everyone's expression changed when they saw Yi Qinghan carrying such a large furnace. When Yi Qinghan came to the Sky Sword Sect, he was only at the Qi Si realm. He hadn't even reached the Blood Ignition realm. In the blink of an eye, 2 years had passed. Now it was impossible to see through his cultivation, but just this move alone was enough to show how powerful he was. I wonder why fellow Taoist Yi is looking for this old man? The Sky Sword Sect's Grand Elder had already come out of seclusion. He woke up the moment Yi Qinghan appeared. He was shocked by Yi Qinghan's aura, and immediately flew out when he saw Yi Qinghan looking for him. Name a price for this refining divine furnace and the divine lotus in the Sky Sword Sect's pagoda. I want them. Yi Qinghan was incomparably domineering. The implication of his words was that no matter how much you name, I'll buy it. Moreover, you have to sell it. The Grand Elder's expression changed. The Sky Sword Sect's pagoda hid a divine lotus of enlightenment. It was a divine item that the founder of the Sky Sword sect accidentally obtained. It had always been hidden in the pagoda, and no one knew about it. Only the sect master passed it down from generation to generation, and the Grand Elder guarded it. How could Yi Qinghan know? This, you can buy the refining divine furnace. The Grand Elder didn't know the value of the refining divine furnace. He didn't know that it wasn't just a furnace, but also a treasure that could refine pills. It was a treasure above the 5th grade. Its value was probably more than 5 million middle-grade spirit stones. Otherwise, he wouldn't have said so. As for the treasure in the pagoda, I'm sorry. This is the inheritance treasure of my Sky Sword sect. It's not for sale. The Grand Elder shook his head and refused. Yi Qinghan's mouth twitched. If the refining divine furnace could be sold, then why couldn't the enlightenment divine lotus? Ridiculous. I'll give you 1 million middle-grade spirit stones and 5 million low-grade spirit stones. It's enough for you to develop into a 4th-grade sect. Just say it, are you selling or not? Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed coldly as he stared at the Grand Elder. As long as the Grand Elder dared to refuse, he wouldn't be here to buy anything today. He would be here to rob the treasures. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. The Sky Sword sect's reserve was less than 1,000 low-grade spirit stones. Yi Qinghan offered 1 million middle-grade spirit stones and 5 million low-grade spirit stones. Was he trying to scare them to death? He could smash everyone in the Sky Sword sect to death with spirit stones. Sell. I represent the Sky Sword sect to sell these 2 items. Jian'eo was overjoyed. He didn't even bother to talk about the price. He was afraid that Yi Qinghan would go back on his word, so he directly agreed. Bastard, these are the treasures left behind by the founder. Although the Grand Elder was tempted, protecting the enlightenment divine lotus was his life's mission. This was his mission, his glory. He was about to die, so he obviously wouldn't be moved by money. Martial uncle, the refining divine furnace is also a treasure left behind by the founder. Why are you willing to sell it? Jian'eo was furious. With so many spirit stones, it was enough to pile up hundreds of Grotto Heaven Realm experts. He would be a fool to refuse. The enlightenment divine lotus looked like it was flowing with divine light, and was extremely precious. However, the laws it contained were difficult to understand. Just looking at it made one feel pain. A useless enlightenment divine lotus for 1 million middle-grade spirit stones and 5 million low-grade spirit stones. Why not? Yi Qinghan's lips curled up as he looked down at the Grand Elder. His aura surged, suppressing the heavens. He coldly said, I want you to name your price. I'm not asking you what you can sell and what you can't sell. Do you understand? The Grand Elder's breathing stagnated, and he took several steps back. He looked at Yi Qinghan's eyes and didn't dare to look directly at him. If I leave this item with you, it will bring disaster to the Sky Sword sect sooner or later. Moreover, it's useless to you. Exchanging it for spirit stones is the best choice. Yi Qinghan was disdainful. This kind of stubborn old man couldn't be raised. The enlightenment divine lotus was a supreme treasure for cultivation. However, one could only use it after reaching the realm of Tao Sovereign. Otherwise, even a Fate Palace realm expert would feel his hair stand on end. It might even affect his Tao heart. For weak cultivators, the enlightenment divine lotus was a disaster, not a blessing. The Grand Elder smiled bitterly. He also understood that Yi Qinghan was right. He had guarded the enlightenment divine lotus for decades, but he didn't dare to take a look at it. If he left it in the sect, he would be on tenterhooks. He was afraid that the experts would come to fight for it. In the end, the sect would be destroyed. Chapter 145. Yi Qinghan forcefully suppressed the Grand Elder. His goal in coming to the Azure Sun Kingdom was the smelting divine furnace and the enlightenment lotus. He had to take whatever he fancied. Jian'eo strongly requested to sell the enlightenment lotus and the smelting divine furnace. How could the other peak lords refuse when they heard the huge number? As for Wang Xufei, he definitely hoped that Yi Qinghan could get the treasures he wanted. Naturally, he agreed wholeheartedly. The Grand Elder was alone, and had some selfish thoughts. He finally nodded in agreement. Haha, I'll go get the enlightenment lotus. The parrot was lying on Yi Qinghan's shoulder. It had been weak all this time. When it heard that it could get the enlightenment lotus, it immediately became excited and rushed toward the iron tower at the back of the mountain. Yi Qinghan was afraid that the parrot would destroy the enlightenment lotus. He grabbed Emperor Yi and Taiwan and rushed over. The Grand Elder and the other peak lords looked at each other and followed. The mountains at the back of the mountain were tall and straight. The trees reached the clouds. An iron tower stood in the middle of the mountain, surrounded by trees and mountains. It was sealed by a faintly discernible barrier. If one didn't see it with their own eyes, it would be hard to notice that there was an iron tower here. Yi Qinghan reached out and broke the defensive barrier. The iron tower trembled for a moment before calming down. The parrot wanted to rush in first, but Yi Qinghan grabbed it. The peak lords were all rejected by the Grand Elder. This was the Sky Sword sect's forbidden area. Apart from the sect master and the Grand Elder, no one could enter. However, Yi Qinghan was destined to be an exception. If he wanted to fight his way in, no one here could stop him. Jianao and Yi Qinghan followed the Grand Elder in. Emperor Yi held Taiwa's shoulder and followed in. The ancient tower was filled with an ancient aura. It had 1,000 years of history, yet it still stood proudly. It could only be said that the Sky Sword sect's luck was good. The simple iron tower had a total of 4 floors. Hidden below were the powerful secret arts of the Heavenly Sword sect. But in Yi Qinghan's eyes, they were all trash. Even looking at them was a waste of time. The second floor was where the spirit crystals were stored. There were only 800 to 900 pieces in total, and they were all low-grade ones. The third floor was where the Grand Supreme Elder lived. He cultivated in seclusion here. On the fourth floor, the thick pressure of the Great Path was confined within the Iron Tower. One could clearly feel it on the third floor. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath. He could feel the dark and water elements within his body becoming restless. It was as if he had smelled an ancient divine medicine. The zither birthmark in Emperor Ye's palm emitted a dazzling light that intimidated the ancient pagoda. The majestic aura made it difficult for Yi Qinghan to breathe, let alone Jianao and the others. Taiwan knelt on the ground from the pressure and looked at Emperor Yi in horror. Take Taiwan and leave first. I will give you the spirit crystals when I come out. Yi Qinghan brought Emperor Yi directly to the fourth floor. There was still a barrier seal above the fourth floor. Yi Qinghan first set up an even stronger barrier outside, sealing half of the iron tower. Then he shattered the barrier inside. The majestic aura of the Great Path covered the heavens and the earth, enveloping Yi Qinghan and Emperor Yi. Emperor Yi had the zither immortal crimson demon body, and the protection of the divine zither. Not only was he not affected, but he was also greedily comprehending the Great Path's origin mysteries. Yi Qinghan had the soul of a great martial saint, and could already comprehend the Great Path. At this moment, he took a deep breath, and pushed open the door to the fourth floor. Instantly, divine light shot out in all directions. The light waves flowed beautifully. It was filled with the origin laws of the Great Path, helping people to comprehend the Great Path and cultivate. It was definitely a treasure that cultivators of the great martial saint realm and above could only dream of. It has 1,000 years of history. It is indeed extraordinary. Yi Qinghan muttered to himself. What a treasure! No wonder I could still sense it even though it was sealed by 2 barriers. Ha ha ha, how good would it be if I could eat a leaf? The parrot was salivating and drooling. If it was not held in Yi Qinghan's hand, it would have already pounced on it. Don't even think about the divine lotus of enlightenment. Otherwise, I will roast and eat you. Yi Qinghan warned in a deep voice. Cough cough. I will just take a look. Don't be nervous. I know that the divine lotus of enlightenment is one and cannot be damaged. Otherwise, if the Great Path is not complete, it will seriously affect the power of the Great Path. The parrot laughed and said. The dense divinity spread outwards, and the divine lotus revealed 4 colors. Each color had a halo. The smallest halo was purple, the second was blue, the third was green, and the outermost was red. It continuously spread outwards as if it wanted to sprout wings and ascend to immortality, breaking through the sky and leaving. Yi Qinghan was excited. This was the 9-colored divine lotus. When all 9 halos appeared, it was an emperor-level divine item. However, this was only 4 colors. It would take many years to evolve to 9 colors. Tisk tsk tsk. I can feel the great path just by smelling it. It can become an emperor-level divine item and suppress the heavenly path with a wave of its hand. Once it reaches the 9th grade, what kind of existence will it be? The parrot was excited as it clicked its tongue. Yi Qinghan sat cross-legged on the ground and used this opportunity to comprehend the mysteries of the water element and the dark element. Now that he had the divine lotus of enlightenment, he could understand the mysteries of the 2 elements even more clearly. He could use them naturally and easily. The little person cultivated these 2 elements in his sea of consciousness, striving to reach the small success realm in a short period of time. He could injure people invisibly, especially the water element. If he cultivated it to the large success realm, as long as he could sense it with his divine sense from 1,000 miles away, he could instantly drain the water element from the enemy's body. The most important component of a person was water. Without the water element, even a god would die. The divine zither and emperor, Ye's palm rushed out of his body. The divine zither's shadow in his eye sockets actually dispersed on its own. Emperor Yi looked at the room full of colored glaze. His eyes widened. He wanted nothing more than to imprint the whole world in his mind. This was the first time he saw the outside world. Emperor Yi was so excited that tears flowed freely. He looked through the enchantment at the endless universe, at the mountains and rivers. He greedily took in every breath. I can finally see. The world is so beautiful. I want to see it forever. Emperor Yi was incomparably excited. Yo, little girl's eyes are so beautiful. The parrot looked at Emperor Ye's bright eyes. It was attracted by those eyes that could influence all things. It couldn't help but praise. Hee, this is what a lowly bird looks like. So white, so fat, so ugly. Emperor Yi laughed foolishly. He then fixed his gaze on Yi Qinghan's vigorous face. Half of his face was like jade, and his hair hung down. He was like a man who had walked out of a painting. His temperament was unparalleled in both ancient and modern times. She looked at him with infatuation, not even paying attention to the enlightenment divine lotus. The parrot curled its lips and said disdainfully, "We are different species. This divine bird doesn't need your approval. I am the most handsome parrot in the world of parrots." The room became so silent that even the sound of breathing could be heard. After a long time, Emperor Yi stared at himself until he was embarrassed. His face flushed red. He turned to look at the enlightenment divine lotus. Wisps of the great Tao were forcibly absorbed into his sea of consciousness. He could use it with a stretch of his hand. Even if it was just a prototype, it was enough to shock anyone. Reincarnation, light, order, yin and yang. Emperor Yi played the zither. The sound of the zither was filled with these great Tao laws and profound essence origins. Although it was very vague, it made Yi Qinghan's body tremble. His understanding of the 2 elements instantly broke through the original shackles. The water element true meaning had reached the peak of minor completion. It was enough to kill people and defend oneself. Yi Qinghan's brows twitched. After stabilizing the water element true meaning, he once again cultivated the dark element. His body emitted a dark light, and his aura was so sharp and oppressive that it made it difficult for others to breathe. The parrot directly fled to Emperor Ye's shoulder. Outside the martial stage, a group of people was anxiously waiting. The Grand Elder, the various main peak masters, and Jian'eo were all waiting under the iron tower. They were trembling from the waves of pressure coming from inside. Too strong. Martial uncle, what is Yi Qinghan's cultivation realm? Jian'eo's face was pale. His Tao heart trembled as he asked in a deep voice. I don't know. I can't tell. It's a very vague realm. However, it's not lower than the first step of the grotto heaven realm. It's very likely that he has already surpassed this old man. The Grand Elder exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. He was also shocked by Yi Qinghan's speed of growth. He didn't know how to describe Yi Qinghan. Yu Shiqia's face was flushed red, and her chest was trembling. She said excitedly, I remember that when he left the Sky Sword sect, he was only at the blood ignition realm. In the blink of an eye, in just 2 years, He actually reached the grotto heaven realm. It really makes me feel ashamed. Of course. Don't you see whose grandson he is? Wang Shufei said proudly. Shameless. Back then, who was the one who didn't dare to offend the Duke Manor and expelled his own daughter and son-in-law from the Shattering Sword Peak? Wuxia sneered. She was extremely disgusted with Wang Shufei. Wang Shufei's expression changed. He was extremely angry, but he had nothing to say. In the past, he and Wuxia were very close, but because of that matter, they had a disagreement. Wuxia wanted to be strong and make the decision for the Wang clan and Yi Chen, but Wang Shufei wanted to expel the two of them from the sect and let them run for their lives. From then on, the two of them became strangers and treated each other like enemies. All right, let's not quarrel anymore. This matter has already passed for so many years. If anyone is wrong, then it's this old man's fault. I shouldn't have admitted defeat. If Yi Qinghan holds a grudge, then let him kill me. In any case, this old man only has a few years left to live. The Grand Elder's aura sank as he coldly shouted. In the end, the Grand Elder still had some prestige. The Peak Lords immediately shut their mouths and quietly waited for Yi Qinghan to come down. Half a day later, Yi Qinghan suddenly opened his eyes. His temperament had changed greatly. He had become even more dignified and ethereal, like an immortal or a god. His appearance was dignified, and his long hair fluttered in the wind. His clothes fluttered, and his eyes were deep and enchanting. The parrot and Emperor Yi were stunned. Master is so handsome. Uncle Master is so handsome. I can see your face now. Emperor Yi excitedly clapped his hands. Yi Qinghan was also delighted. He couldn't help but look at the petal of enlightenment. He secretly thought, I wonder if the divine zither will continue to seal her eyes after I put away the petal of enlightenment. My son, has the divine zither's shadow completely left your eyes? Yi Qinghan didn't want to disappoint Emperor Yi, so he asked in a low voice. I don't know. I can't sense it anymore. Master, do you think my eyes will still be sealed after I leave this iron tower? Emperor Yi sadly said. I really like the feeling of light. I really like being able to see the world. Yi Qinghan bitterly smiled. He really couldn't guarantee this. Once the petal of enlightenment was put away, the divine zither's shadow would still seal her eyes. He couldn't just keep the petal of enlightenment hanging in front of her, could he? You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.